There is a story that a man will be born who will be forever loved by God himself. There is a prophecy that came upon the Brelova family. It happened on the day of the birth of twin girls. The prophecy did not show to girls, but only one, the younger one named Noek. She was the very person who grew up into a beautiful lady with beautiful silver hair and the sweetest smile. In her very childhood, the beauty began to show her abilities. They were as unusual as she herself. She could freely control water, subjugating it to the very drop. Everyone loved the mistress. She was called the man whom God loved. While the girl was enjoying the attention and the better life, her twin sister Asia Brelova was constantly envious. She was at every event against her will, being forced to go there with Noke. People around were always whispering. They couldn't help but notice that the lady never smiled. Moreover, they couldn't help but notice the fact that the younger one had abilities, while the older one never showed them. The aristocrats could not understand why they could be so different. One of the pair was perfect, as if blessed by God, and the other was a failure. Everyone laughed at Asia, honoring the one who had absolutely everything one could wish for. The twin story was the most interesting topic for gossip. The elder Brelova was forced to endure ridicule, because if she ran away, they laughed at her even louder. But the girl decided that at the new event, everything would be completely different. The woman approaches those who were again discussing her abilities, or rather the lack thereof. She heard that someone received God's blessing. She wants to know what about the second person who was certainly mentioned. The conversation was about Asia. The aristocrat is trying to get out of it, declaring that she simply meant that she is looking forward to the Miss S growth. A smirk on her face, while the blue mind calmly addresses, "I don't remember asking you about something like this, so stop chatting about it." Unwilling to endure it any longer, the beauty screams. No one has the right to whisper behind her back. No matter who continues, she will definitely not regret, and will tear him to shreds. The girl did not immediately understand what exactly was happening in her life. At first, she thought that this world was as if written in a novel. The last life she remembered was not bright. The heroine quit her boring job and decided to travel. Fortunately, the plane that was flying to its destination suddenly exploded during the flight. Something happened to the fuel tank, so the woman died. But after continuous darkness, when she opened her eyes, she discovered that she had entered the body of another person. Later, the girl was sent to the doctor. He issued a conclusion. The lady fell from a horse and finally came to her senses. Being possessed was not enough. The brunette was called Asia, and the younger sister Noexia. The new family turned out to be the Biarilovs. Suddenly memories came to mind that the lady had not expected at all. She remembered everything. She remembered the novel, which was called Beloved Saint. The book has always been very popular. It tells the story of completely different twin sisters, compared to the younger sister Noexia, who was loved by everyone. The older one, honest Asia, had nothing special about herself. She lived modestly. Over time she desired what the blonde had. The woman constantly watched from the sidelines. She doubted how she could achieve this, and did not understand why God had gifted her sister, why she did not have the same strength, why for this she was respected much more in society. I was constantly thinking in my head about what would have happened if the lady had been born Noexia. If she had the same talent that could be demonstrated to everyone. Asia was the villain in Beloved Saint. The brunette sits in bed and looks at her hands. She doesn't know how exactly she became that girl from the novel. Perhaps it happened because she often reads fantasy novels. She didn't think that this would be a huge plus. Blue Side begins to realize that she has become a noblewoman. She was able to accept this new reality quite quickly. After all, she died anyway, and cannot return to who she was before. For her it no longer has much meaning. From the moment the lady opened her eyes to a new world, a new, bright life began for her, and she also realized that the situation wasn't so bad. The brunette enjoyed living her life, and the clothes suited her perfectly, having been tailored to her measurements. In the novel, Asia almost constantly compared herself to her sister. She could not live peacefully, and was constantly going through hell. The woman decides that this will not happen again. She has no reason to envy, because she is young, beautiful and has money. In the past, the beauty could not afford much, but now she lives in luxury, which cannot but please. The lady, as usual, drinks tea. While behind her back the conversation of the maids is heard, they notice that the lady has become strange, all after the accident with the horse. No one could help but notice that people continue to disappear in the city. Many are beginning to suspect something is wrong. They say that all this is due to experiments with weapons on people, happening in the Kalua Empire. The lady hears the name of the country, which makes her confused and chokes on her drink. She wipes her lips with a napkin and calmly asks the maid to repeat what was already said. She needs to know more details. The brunette feels uncomfortable, but tries to explain. Lately, There have been rumors that the Kalua Empire is experimenting with the human body. As far as we know, more people have disappeared in the past year than in the previous one. Many people are saying that people have just been taken to the Kalua Empire. The maid says that this is again just a rumor. The lady should not worry too much. It does not directly concern her, although it is a problem for society. The woman exhaled with displeasure. The problem was that she remembered something. The Arvel Empire, in the backstory of the novel, enters into a war with Kalua. They had been preparing for this 4 years, so it was not unexpected. The biggest problem is not only that people are dying, but that Tanasia is also giving her life. The man who killed her was none other than Ascan, the main villain of the book. He was a victim of human experiments. The man, unlike all his other brothers, managed to survive the experiment. He became the strongest person in the world. Ascan escaped from the laboratory when he was years old. Because of his shabby clothes, he was mistaken for a slave and served to the Arvel Empire. The blue-eyed girl remembers everything that happened. Tanasia and this boy were the same age. It is known that the brunette is exactly 15, and since this is so, everything immediately becomes clear. The main events of the novel will happen in the new year. There is very little time left. The woman jumps up from her seat and turns to the maid. She asks where the slave market is in the capital. It is not clear why the mistress is asking about this, but she does not want to explain. The brunette states that there is no time for questions. She urgently needs to prepare the carriage and go to the destination. Someone knocks on the door, and then asks if it is possible to enter the room. The woman nods. The man says that he didn't come just like that. He says that he filled the bath with water. The lady asked him to do so. The beauty freezes. She carefully studies the general features. Golden eyes are the first thing that catches the eye. The collar of the shirt covers the neck, however. This does not prevent one from noticing the outline of a tattoo with an ancient language on the neck. It is hard to believe what is happening. Tanasia asks the name in a trembling voice. The brunette answers, "My name is Ascan." In the original, the young man should not be in the Brelovia estate. In the original, it was said that the young man escaped from the laboratory, but it was not said that he was a slave in the main character's estate. Despite this, everything is real. Beloved Saint is an unfinished novel, so there may still be hidden plot twists. The lady tried to find Ascan. Perhaps she should be glad that he appeared before her like this, completely unexpectedly. The brunette breaks the mistress out of her thoughts. He asks if it is possible to leave if there is nothing else to do. The girl cannot think of anything right away. She stutters and agrees. She has no other choice. The woman doesn't fully understand what happened. The young man left as if he had literally run away. The maid turns and asks why the slave was let go so easily. Turning around, the lady raises an eyebrow. What are they talking about? There's a look of fear on her face that's hard to hide. No matter how hard the assistant tries, she notices that usually they detain a man for much longer. The blue-eyed woman is scared. Perhaps Brelova did something wrong with him, and what did I do to him so quickly? After a recent horse accident, her memories seem to be slightly clouded. No matter what the young lady is told, she will not be angry. You just need to tell the truth. Help restore all the lost thoughts. One of the assistants decides to come forward and tell the truth. The lady initially disliked Ascan. The woman often said that she hated his jet black hair. She grabbed his head and pulled with all her strength. Usually, water was collected using a tap, but Tanasia ordered him to carry it himself every day directly to her room. When the lady was in a bad mood, she took it out on her subordinate and punished him with a whip. Brelova is horrified. She is disappointed. Although this is not what one would expect from the villain of the novel, the flag of death now hangs over her. Ascan has harbored a grudge against her, for which he must ultimately kill after the war begins. More and more thoughts are in her head. The beauty begins to understand that she was the one who sent him into the hands of the Kalua Empire. In the original, the young man escaped from the laboratory and ended up in Arwen. For some reason a little later, he was caught again. The reason was precisely described in a few words, however. The girl could not remember anything. If she suddenly got entangled in a tangle of problems in the situation she was in, she would definitely become a corpse. The maid asked if the lady wanted to go to the market, as she wanted. The woman refuses almost immediately. She asks to cancel the visit to the slave place. Tanasia cannot refuse life in the new world. This is her second chance to get the best. I have to find a way to survive. That night, the heroine went to rest. That day, she had her first dream about how she ended up in the world of the novel. She remembered nothing until the moment she opened her eyes in that garden after falling off her horse. In that dream, the lady found Ascan at the slave market. This happened several months before a new soul entered the body. The woman did not just take the young man. She noticed him immediately. He attracted her attention. The lady immediately noticed an ancient language engraved on the youth's neck. and her attention shifted to his back, where dozens of magical formulas were engraved on his body. The lady had never seen anything like it before. Nothing else. These were traces of experiments. It was in the laboratory that they left traces on him that made him a human weapon, later used in the war between the two empires. Powers were invested into the body of an ordinary person. This could not help but interest the beauty. She thought that this was a direct path to a real desire. She too could have powers like control over water, maybe something else, but she wanted exactly the same as her sister. This was no Exius' unique ability, which one could only look at with envy. The woman understood that if she could unravel the mystery of the ancient language and magical formulas on Askin's body, she too could possess this ability. The blue-eyed woman began to study the guy. Because it was illegal, the research was kept completely secret. The first thing the woman did was find out what his ability was in order to move further up the ladder. Tanasia didn't want the young man to pretend that he was completely ordinary. The brunette saw the formulas on his body, and it was completely obvious what was going on. An ordinary person couldn't have such marks, and in such a huge quantity. The girl ordered him to quickly demonstrate his abilities, but they did not listen. The man decided to remain silent until the very end, so with flashing eyes, the lady began to beat him with a whip on the body. After a while, the first ability to make the body of steel appeared. Thanks to his powers, Askin will not die even if he fights alone against dozens or hundreds of people. No matter how many times they attack him, it will be impossible to inflict a single wound on his body. The whip only leaves marks, but will not be able to reach the end. Even after learning the truth, the woman was not going to retreat. She offered to test how long the hero could hold out in his steel form. Then she dealt even more blows, and the dream turned into a nightmare. Through sheer force, Tanasia finally woke up. It would be good if what happened remained in the dream, however. These are the memories of the body, before the lady got into it. It turns out that the brunette not only mocked Askin, she carried out the same experiments on him as the Kalua Empire. The story is quite sad, if it goes as planned. Knowing about the man's abilities, there is a high probability that the Duchess will sell him to the people from whom he escaped. The plot will move on, and the slave will come to Brel Ova to get his sweet revenge. The blue-eyed woman decides to change the situation. She desperately needs to be forgiven and have everything fixed. The woman hurries to the place where Askin lives. She enters the room, but doesn't immediately see the young man, because he was washing himself. The brunette turns around and asks what the lady has come for. It is important for him to know if any new assignments have come up, because usually she only contacted him if she urgently needed something done. The blue-eyed woman with sparkling eyes begins to realize that she didn't notice the first time, but she is treated with caution. Memories immediately come to mind. Considering how the lady mocked him before, it is quite deserved, but now, everything will be different. The brunette says that nothing special happened. The hero is simply moving into the mansion where Tanasia lives. Instead of the dark little room where the man lives, he will live in a clean and bright one, as it should be. Askin raises an eyebrow. He doesn't quite understand his true desires. The blue-eyed girl understands that trust still needs to be earned. She says that there is nothing more to worry about. His life will only get better from now on. As is well known, The Beloved Saint is not yet a finished novel, so the brunette decided to change the plot. To suit her needs, the slave will become a page. History will be perfectly rewritten. No one will guess about it. But everything will be fine for the lady. She will definitely reach her happy ending, because that's how it will be. The man looks at her with displeasure. He can't hide the fact that he doesn't like Brelova, or rather, he doesn't even try to hide it. The lady understands that he has to stay with a master who is unpleasant to him. No one asked him when they took him to the estate. Despite all the hostility, Askin still obeys. He has no choice but to agree. The brunette takes advantage of the opportunity. She orders him to pack his things and go out. I'd like to say it directly, but it would be wrong, even if the guy doesn't like it. You should be patient. The lady plans to keep him close and correct the mistakes Tanasia made. She will treat him well. The hero won't even notice that something is wrong after a few minutes. He was ready. The lady thought it would take much longer, but there was only one small bag on her shoulder, and there wasn't much room for anything in it. The brunette throws up her hands in surprise, asking if the young man is sure he can survive the winter in such clothes. They are so light that it makes him cold. Brelova has many different options, but he doesn't. The mistress decides that the situation needs to be changed. It's worth starting with suitable clothes. The maid is asked to call a tailor. The slave does not understand and therefore declares that everything is fine. He does not need new clothes. Woman cannot leave her page without anything. She will choose the best for him, and asks that from that moment on, she be called lady, and not mistress. It will be more correct. Later, the girl introduces the man to everyone else. She introduces his new position. Now he will always be there. The the maids lined up in a row nod. In fact, fear has emerged within the boarders. All because of what is happening, they are afraid to understand that the young man will be kept nearby. The woman understands what they are thinking. Contrary to expectations, she plans to treat Askin very well, so that there will be a happy ending. Finally, it was time for clothes. The tailor asked if the Duchess needed to be measured, but she shook her head. The measurements would be taken from a servant. They would find something suitable for him, something that would fit perfectly and look good too. The woman gets to work. First, she measures the body. Then they begin to study the designs that are in fashion. The blue side one decides that perhaps it would be a good idea to cut Askana's hair a little. The hairstyle is the key to success. While the maids began to carefully trim the hair, the lady went to read a magazine and drinked. After a while, the man showed the first outfit, perfect. Everyone else was shocked by the sight of the young man. Tan Asia smiles. The options are quite decent. Then she asks to see all the other options. When everything is over, the lady asked if the young man was hungry. He did not answer anything, smiling. The blue-tied one offers to eat as much as he wants. An awkward feeling fills the room. The brunette can't cut the meat even after the maid helps him. The mistress asks him to practice using a knife when he has free time. From now on, he'll have to get used to eating together. By the way, would you like to go for a walk so the food can digest? There is no reaction. The man only answers dryly yes. The heroine feels that her whole plan is starting to fall apart. She thought that if she gives him what he never had, it will get better, but nothing works, as if all his emotions have completely dried up. The woman doesn't give up so easily. Maybe he really will feel better if he takes a walk. They head outside. Following the path, the lady suggests going a little deeper. They have almost reached their destination. Pointing her finger at the clearing, the beauty decides that they can sit onto stumps located ahead. Tan Asia sits down first, and then asks the young man to follow her. He remains silent. It was no coincidence that Brelova chose the perfect location, as the clearing offers a stunning view of the starry sky, which is bright and mesmerizing. Askin almost immediately raises his head to the sky. He feels himself being fascinated by what is happening. The woman asks if he really liked it. The answer is strange. The slave asks if the beauty has changed her methods. It's not immediately clear what they're talking about. Tan Asia wants to ask a direct question, but they start explaining to her simply that earlier, he was asked to help deprive Lady No Exi of her special abilities, and if that doesn't work, she should be disposed of. The man is honest when he says that no matter how hard he tries, nothing works, and he feels uneasy inside. Tan Asia doubts what is happening right up until the moment she remembers her memories. The previous version of the heroine was cruel. It is not surprising that the elder Brelova gave orders, because after all, it was quite convenient for her. She did with the slave as she wished before she blindly began to treat him well. The mistake is obvious. The lady should have said something, at least some words, explained why the sudden change in mood occurred. The best thing that comes to her mind, albeit belatedly, is to ask for forgiveness for the way she behaved in the past. Because of the lady, Askin had a very hard time. She asks for forgiveness for everything she ever said and did. There is no excuse for her behavior, but despite this, it is worth trying. It is a pity that you can't just say that another soul has entered the body. In fact, Brelova lost her memory immediately after falling from her horse. That incident divided her life into before and after. The feeling of hatred towards her younger sister also disappeared. She no longer cares at all about abilities and all that. She needs to forget the unfounded request for murder. The lady promises that she will not bother him anymore. She has no need for it anymore, so she finally refuses. The young man lowers his sad gaze. The promise is worth nothing. It is better for him to be beaten again. With a good attitude, he is very uncomfortable. Yesterday made the lady doubt what to do next. She sits tired. There is too much flow of thoughts in her head that does not allow her to live peacefully. She needed to transfer to this body a little earlier. Of course, the lady understood that Askan's mistrust had been broken, but she had no idea that it was stronger than expected. She began to think that she needed to run away somewhere. That way she would definitely survive. Tan Asia understood that this was nonsense, because her father would not let this go, and that the streets were not safe. The woman continues to think about how she can change her destiny, but she is distracted by Mot Ele, the Duke's family's teacher, who smiles and offers to solve the problem that was written on the board. Blueside realizes with horror that she has listened to all the material given to her. She looks closely at the equation and suddenly understands that, in fact, the solution is quite simple. She names the correct answer. The teacher gives the heroine a surprised look. She asks if it's really that simple. She managed to solve the equation right in her head. The blue checked some mental dawns and thought about their arrangement of numbers. The woman picks up a pen, suggesting that what was written be solved a little differently, a little in a new way. Matele checks it and gasps. Of course, she knew that the lady was an outstanding person, but she had no idea that it was of such a level. No matter how hard the teacher tried, she couldn't get the girl to study, but she realized that the whole situation would finally change. Putting a stack of books on the table, she asked to see if there were any solutions that couldn't be solved. Tan Asia glances at the pages, and then calmly announces that she can solve everything. It turns out, she looked into a textbook on advanced magic formulas, which means the lady has natural talent. The woman asks him to stop wasting time on magic and elementalism. It becomes clear that when thoughts about formulas enter his head, everything seems natural. In a dream, she saw various statues with meaning on Askin's body. The reason Brel Over originally noticed the human experiment was because she could read the formulas. But of course, she didn't develop her talent further, because she was obsessed with her younger sister's water power. The beauty thinks that she just needs to use her talent correctly. Madele is happy, because the girl can become the best student in the empire, and even on the planet itself. There is no need to hide her talent in the future. This will not happen. The head of the family doesn't know yet, but as soon as he is informed, he will feel joy. There is confidence that he will provide great support. The blue mind side one feels strange, but simply nods. The brunette agrees to tell her father everything, because she wants to see him happy. Perhaps fate will still be changed. Asia has no reason to behave the same way as the original heroine. The girl feels great. She thinks that she chose the right path. From the very beginning, she did not expect changes from Askan. However, this did not mean that hope did not settle inside her. She needed to find a way to protect herself from revenge. Blue-eyed is walking through the garden. She didn't suspect that in a second, a huge stream of water would hit her, causing her to remain completely wet. A voice is heard. No Exir runs up with an extremely worried expression on her face. The assistant hands over a handkerchief, asking if the lady is okay. She believes that nothing bad has happened, although of course, this does not change the fact that she is soaked almost from head to toe. The sensation is unpleasant. The blonde feels like she's about to burst into tears. It's becoming more difficult for her to think. Perhaps what she says will sound like an excuse, but what happened wasn't on purpose. She didn't want it. Denasia is fine. There was a similar scene in the original. The maids demanded to demonstrate the abilities of water. It was a scene where the sister made a mistake that she herself did not foresee. The heroine knows that the words are sincere, because it really is an accident. There is no need to worry about it too much. Brelova Jr. freezes in surprise. The reaction is too simple. The only thing the brunette advises is not to practice your powers in an open area right in the garden of the estate. A guest might pass by and have a whole cistern of water dumped on them, which would be awkward. The maids run up to apologize. They tell Asia that the mistress is not to blame for anything. They asked to demonstrate the power of water because they wanted to see everything up close. Since the maids admit their mistake, this will not happen again. Good Noexia should not be asked to demonstrate her strength in such places. Looking with a stern gaze, the lady clarifies, "Do you understand everything?" Nodding vigorously, the girls assure that everything is perfectly clear to them. The girl approaches and, bowing her head, declares that she has been forgiven and that she will remember it. A heroine wants to apologize again. The woman fixed the whole situation for her. Although she doesn't see a problem with it, the blue-pied woman smirks. "I didn't do anything great, did I?" Turning around, Tanasia looks at Askan. He has stepped aside, and all this time is looking somewhere into the garden. One can say that he is uncomfortable being in such company. The woman decides that she will go first. No XA felt confused. It seemed to her that her sister's face had noticeably darkened, as if she was experiencing a new wave of anger. Of course, she assumes that she herself had ruined her mood by making another mistake. The first thing to do, when they arrive at the mistress's chambers, is that the girl asks the guy to take off his shirt. Huge scars are visible on his body. They stretch across his entire torso and back, and some kind of medicine needs to be applied immediately. After a few minutes, she manages to find the treasured jar of medicine. The heroine turns around and sees a young man sitting on his knees. He shrugs. "You told me to," and rests. New realization hits his head. That vivid dream with memories puts everything in its place. Testing his abilities, the lady whipped his bare back. The hero thought that the same thing awaits him again. Coming closer, the lady opens the jar. Almost immediately, Askin tries to jump back, because he doesn't understand what Tanasia is going to do. She explains that she is applying medicine, and he needs to sit still and be patient, because it will sting, since the ointment is supposed to heal wounds. Being kinder is not so difficult. The lady understands that she should have behaved this way from the very beginning. After all, the young man's pain is incomprehensible. However, a good attitude is a kind of insurance for the future. Brel Ova spends time studying strategies again. She thinks once again about how she can avoid her imminent death. She would like to have the option to prevent the war using only her abilities. Kahlua and Arwen plan to fight, but if that doesn't happen, a lot will change. First of all, the family won't be exterminated, and they will protect in Asia, and there won't be something where becoming a general of an enemy country will cause a man to bring death. The beauty could very well help with the lab, but this will cause the experiment to fail, since Askin played an important role in its success. The key is how the lady will use her abilities. The woman's thoughts completely consumed her consciousness in the morning. The maid found her lying exhausted at the table. She herself had not noticed how she had accidentally fallen asleep without going to bed. The maid nods. The head of the house has invited his daughter to dinner, but there is still plenty of time, a large reserve. Before dinner, the assistant will help her get ready. The blue-eyed side one remembers what Orland is like. The lady heads down the corridor. An important realization has come to her since the soul entered the new body. The girl still hasn't seen her father. She's a little nervous. The man is well known in the Empire. He is intelligent and has a cool character. It was he who raised the family's reputation, all thanks to his good business acumen, which has never failed him at the right moment. His external image was always described as a cold-blooded duke who doesn't care about anything, but despite this, he was very kind to his daughters. The heroine exhales and, gathering all her willpower into a fist, enters the dining room. She tells herself that nothing will happen after all. They are a family. Her father smiles, greeting Asia. The first thing that catches your eye is that the man is incredibly young. It only takes a few moments to remember the plot of the novel again. His father and late mother, who once upon a time got engaged early. Walking forward, Brelova smiles and sits down at the table. She tries to remain calm and not show anything. The young man has work, but despite this, he made time. The blonde man put his business aside for a reason. He came to give his daughter a gift. The woman is surprised. A servant approaches, who brings a scarlet box. When he opens it, an excellent necklace, shimmering with scarlet, appears before everyone. Matella arrived earlier. She informed the Duke that she had discovered an outstanding talent for formulas, which was captivating. The congratulatory gift would definitely please. He made his way carefully. Blue Side takes the box, but still can't believe what's happening. She should seriously think about her future, and her father, in turn, will do everything possible to satisfy her desires. A timid thank you is heard. It's surprising that a busy man would put his work aside for a gift, when he could have sent him to his room. No, Exia congratulates her sister. The decoration is incredible, which means it's perfect. Suddenly, the lady mentions that there will soon be a banquet in honor of the birthday of His Highness the Crown Prince. It would be ideal if the brunette put on a new exquisite thing. The plot of the novel pops into my head again. The banquet in honor of the prince's birthday. This is the place where Brelova Jr. and the main character first met. Roldy Franz Arwen spent time only with her. It so happened that in the book, the two fell in love with each other from the very first meeting. They were drawn to each other like a magnet. They both liked it. The couple began a love story. Of course, it was not ideal, but in the eyes of others they had no problems. Of course, which is natural for Asia. She tried to separate them, because as usual, she was very jealous of her sister. The villain never supported love because she herself could not get something similar. This could not help but upset her, but the brunette does not know what will happen if, instead of hating, she will root for the relationship of the main characters. The best solution is, instead of trying to separate them, to help them come together and reduce the likelihood of death. The blue-eyed woman holds out a necklace. No, Exea, can I give it to you? The blonde tries to refuse. She said that the jewelry would suit her sister. She doesn't want to put it on herself. The heroine understands. She thought that the thing would simply suit someone else better. The girl tries to refuse again. She is grateful, but cannot accept what she is given. The villain decides that it would be even better to help choose a dress that will perfectly match the decoration. Asia doesn't want to be the center of attention at the banquet. She'd rather let her sister shine. It's in her best interest for her first meeting with Roll to make a big impression. The blonde asks again if it's true that they'll help her choose an outfit. The heroine claps her hands. She will be happy if everything works out. Orland also feels better. It seems that the relationship has become better than before, however. He also thinks that it is not necessary to give the jewelry to his sister. The man turns to the servant and asks him to prepare another necklace. Later, the lady asks when they will go to try on the dress. She cannot wait for this moment. She wishes it would come sooner. Blue-eyed remains calm. She explains that there is no problem. They can go there whenever they want. The gentleman decides that they can talk about something else, since dinner is not over yet. Askin has been watching his hostess closely all this time. He can't believe that she is behaving in such a new way. The lady notices this and gives him a puzzled look, followed by a smile. It's still unclear why everything happens this way. The hero constantly has dreams, or rather nightmares, that haunt him. They are about memories, bad memories. In the dream, the hero runs through the forest. He is barefoot. Because of this, his feet are dirty with mud. He does not pay attention to the pain when he accidentally steps on bumps and branches. But even so, in the end he falls in the middle of the road. People crowd around him. Voice is constantly heard. The same voice from the past. Askin will not be able to escape even if he wants to. He will not be able to escape from the Palua Empire. He will be discovered before death occurs. At this moment he opens his eyes, convulsively gulping air. After escaping from the laboratory, the man never slept peacefully. He had nightmares of being chased. He understands that as soon as the lady's whim ends, his life will return to normal. You certainly shouldn't expect much from the mistress. It's completely useless. From the moment the slave came to his senses, he ended up in the Brel-Ovi estate and hid from his pursuers. He was pursued from the Kalo Empire, but it is very difficult to penetrate the Arwen Empire, and even more so the estate. The man stays with the Duke, only because he understands that despite all the problems with Tunisia, this place is the safest. He needs to collect funds for travel. There is a good opportunity for him. The young man leaves his room and heads down the corridor until he is stopped by two men. They ask him why he is dressed like that, but when they don't get an answer, they snort in displeasure. Don't you even want to say hello to us? Previously, they lived in the same room, but then the desires of the young lady changed dramatically. She did everything to take the young man to her. He wants to continue walking, but feels a blow to the head. A wrench and a few drops of blood fall to the floor. The guys decide that it's better to kill Askin so that he doesn't tell anyone. The brunette is calm, asking for them to warn him in advance next time. Because of them his clothes got a little dirty. They start laughing. They mock, because they don't believe that, having received new clothes, the young man immediately became a noble man. Life in a better place will not last long. The guy will be thrown away like useless trash. From the very beginning, the young man was strange, immediately recalling the doctor's words in the laboratory. The hero is a time bomb. When emotions become strong, the force can destroy everything in an instant. The brunette doesn't want to do anything wrong. If he uses force, he can easily take the lives of those who stand in his way. The problem is in controlling the force once it starts to come out. He will only be able to stop after the target is defeated. The lady's voice is heard. It breaks her out of her thoughts about what is the best thing to do. Her schedule has suddenly changed, so the heroine followed her assistant. The fire of discontent burns in his eyes. It is dangerous. The brunette did not suspect that she would see such an interesting spectacle. How the other servants mock the man. They freeze in horror, realizing what awaits them. They actively ask for mercy, but the woman will not answer so easily. She asks to first apologize to Askan. He received a head injury. One of them immediately asks for forgiveness. She did not mean to cause harm. The lady warns, I do not have a very gentle character. The assistant must not be touched. Otherwise, the very next day they will be packing their things to leave. The blue-eyed girl quickly drives them both away, and then turns to clarify whether the young man's wound hurts, since he has started bleeding. The brunette thinks that there is no need to worry about a small scratch. However, for the heroine this is not entirely right. He is her man, her servant, so he should not get hurt without permission. This is an order. Now that everything is over, it's time to go for treatment. No Exia is waiting for her sister. Finding a dress for the imperial ball isn't that easy, but the woman decided to help. She will also go to the ball. The hero refuses to follow his mistress. It would be better to treat the wound yourself. Surprised eyes speak louder than words. She announces that the assistant will go with her to the event, which means he also needs to get dressed. They will find suitable clothes for him in the boutique. Very soon they were already in the fitting room. People were fussing around the man, trying to choose the best for him. No Xia, who was next to her sister, noticed that the shoes that were chosen matched perfectly. Everything was in fashion. The woman tried for the benefit of everyone, of course. The first thing she did was find a dress suitable for the youngest. She sits and examines Askana's next suit. It seems to her that it is worth picking out another tailcoat. It's time to look through the catalogs. The beauty just has to choose a nice dress for herself. She loves shopping, but it requires a lot of effort. One of the tailors shows what they have prepared for the lady. The boutique has collected the best models, those that the Duchess usually wears. She is surprised that she is looking at no Galaxia's style, but quickly realizes that the previous version of the girl constantly imitated her sister. She refuses. My tastes have changed. Brunette looks around the store, and then points to a beautiful black dress with a pretty red pattern. The salesperson points out that this is different from the usual style and needs a fitting. She is refused and asked to simply pack it. No Exia comes up and asks a question in surprise. The Duchess worked hard to find the best one for the others, but she won't even try on the dress herself. She waves it off, because she knows the clothes will fit perfectly. She's tired. While we're waiting, One of the workers brings us some cold black tea. She's holding a tray, but she's shaking with fear. It's unclear how she can feel so much emotion. A second later, a loud noise is heard. A tray falls to the floor. All the dishes are broken, and tea is spilled on the hem of her dress. The lady is a little scared, and she feels that she is uncomfortable, but she is all wet. Askin calmly lowers himself down, takes out a handkerchief, and begins to try to wipe the hem. He asks if the lady is hurted. Receiving an answer, continues his work. The marks remain, but the stain is no longer wet. It is natural for a servant to try to help, however. The lady is still surprised until now. The lady had only seen discontent in the young man. She had never seen such an expression on his face, so calm. The hero does this on purpose. What is happening looks cute, so the beauty lightly touches her head with her hand and strokes her hair. She did this unconsciously, and a second later, she sharply raises her palm. Askin looks cute when he acts loyal and calm. The woman doesn't know if she's always had this type. No Exia watches them in surprise. She herself doesn't understand what happened. The boutique workers apologize. They don't know how they can make the lady believe in the sincerity of their words. They promise that they will not get by with just an apology. They will definitely compensate for everything, and if there are any wishes, they will fulfill them too. The blue-eyed girl nods. For now, she will only take payment for cleaning the dress and shoes. If the stain does not go away, she will ask for a new one. This is self-evident. The girl is only concerned about whether they are going to punish them corporally. The brunette explains that when something similar happened, the lady personally flogged one of the employees. They don't know if they can hope for leniency. This time, the lady looks calmer. It becomes clear what happened. The puzzle comes together when the assistant manager was carrying tea. Her hands were shaking. They were all scared, seeing Brel Ova, so it is natural for them to be so nervous. The girl has a tough character, she knows it, but she certainly can't compare to the original Tanasia, whose behavior is simply terrible. Every time the lady thinks that nothing can surprise her anymore, something happens again. The lady feels extremely awkward. She wants to know what Ascan, standing behind her, is thinking. No Exia calmly awaits what punishment will be handed down. Both act as if they are used to such situations. Part of her heart wants to justify herself, but that would be wrong. The woman calmly says that no matter what, she will not torture anyone. The employee who was whipped last time no longer works at the boutique, because measures have been taken. There was no need for what happened. Madam can hire that person again. The compensation for the dress that was discussed would be better sent to the fired person. There was no need to punish him corporally. Tanasia's life is part of the heroine's new life. She needs to come to terms with it. All mistakes can be corrected before it's too late. The Biarrilovs leave the store. The entire staff says goodbye to them. The girl who knocked over the tea breathes a sigh of relief while Askin receives the check. No one knows how this happened. The behavior of the nobles is probably to blame, or maybe she's just in a good mood. Madame looks after Brel Ova. She doesn't know why she has changed so much, but perhaps public opinion will also soon change radically if she continues to behave decently. The carriage arrives at its destination. Tanasia is not going to get out. She wants to put her thoughts in order a little. She will make one circle nearby, and then return back. No Exium for the day and leaves, thoughts immediately creeping into her head. It's unclear whether the amount was enough to make amends if she pays more. Rumors will spread about changes. Atrocities were happening even in places the heroine was not aware of. She wants to find a way to protect herself, but the situation greatly complicates the task. The lady turns around, and as Kanda is sitting in front of her, she is surprised that he didn't leave with Brelova Jr. The man looks dissatisfied. He remembers what they told him before, but now he can't understand the intentions, and it's irritating. The hero wants to know what the mistress is really after. Obviously he is like this, because he was stroked on the head in the boutique. Even in his sleep, during all the torture, he did not make a sound. There was no reaction. But from just one touch to his head, displeasure appeared. If you think about it, when they showed him the starry sky, in order for him to enjoy it, the young man had exactly the same reaction, pure distrust. The problem isn't just the sudden change in mood, it's the hero's first time seeing stars and receiving unexpected praise, his gaze wandering away. But does that really matter to you? The young man doesn't deny anything. Perhaps he likes what's happening. The lady never thought about it, because he seemed very mature to her. In the novel he was the main villain, but in reality he's just a child. He's years old. If everything is true, the heroine wants to give the guy even more. She will do everything to make him feel comfortable being around her. The maids meet No Xa. As soon as she enters the estate, they immediately ask if everything is okay. It was obvious to them from the beginning that Tanasia would only pretend to choose a dress, but in fact, she would set them up. The lady asks not to speak badly. Her sister chose the best dress for her. She really liked it. It was difficult for her to choose, because everything looked very beautiful, so the help was very important. One of the maids remarks that since everything is fine, they should prepare for another prank. There are rumors that the mistress plans to ruin the outfit. Perhaps this is true. No Xi has often been deceived. She's gotten into trouble many times, but the girl is different from her former self when she was doused, when she gave away her father's gift, and even while trying on clothes in a boutique. My sister has never been kind, ever since her abilities were discovered, and now she has finally changed. Perhaps they can become friends, something the girl couldn't even dream of. Blutside thanks him for worrying about her, but asks him never to say that again, because she will believe until the very end that everything has changed. The maids nod and immediately leave, asking for forgiveness for what they said. The beauty realizes that she seems to have managed to cope. She is left alone and again remembers the moment when as Kana was stroked on the head. She is sad, because she wants the same thing. The lady lies in bed, transported back to the past again, feeling the pain that Ova experiences while everyone around her whispers that she is defective because she did not receive any special powers. Everyone thinks that only the youngest has good genes. A maid appears behind her and accidentally pushes her mistress. She thinks that she is being mocked again. Simple apologies will not do. Corporal punishment again. The woman suddenly opens her eyes. Her body is in a cold sweat, because what happened cannot help but worry her. Sharon, Asia's faithful maid, enters the room. She asks if she had a nightmare. The brunette promises that everything will be fine. The best thing is to forget about all the problems, because the day of the imperial ball has arrived. Something pleasant will definitely happen in the evening. The Duchess can't help but agree the day has come when the main character and the Crown Prince will finally meet. I'd like to think that their meeting will go according to plan, and nothing terrible will happen. From the very morning, preparations begin. First a massage, then makeup and a dress. The lady has spent many hours, and although she is still at home, she wants to rest. An assistant is already waiting for her at the entrance. He just arrived. His suit is perfect. He simply put on what was chosen for him. There is no need to praise him for that. Fashion is a beauty, and the young man's face is already beautiful, so with a properly chosen suit it began to shine even more. Her face turns scarlet, and one cannot help but notice that the lady has become more straightforward in her expressions lately. This is a compliment, at least that is how the lady takes it. A carriage arrives, with no Xi already in it. She hopes that her sister will go with her. Usually she always refused. There is no reason to go together. After all, it is better for the family to stick together. The hall is bright. A multitude of aristocrats from different houses have gathered around. They begin to whisper as soon as they notice the Brelovite wins. One is known as the light, and the other resembles a shadow. What is happening is not much different from the dream that the lady saw. It becomes clear why the girl always rode in a separate carriage. They whisper as if on purpose when she passes by. Blue Guide has no intention of resting first. She needs to clear the stage. Nothing should interfere with Noexi and Rachel's meeting. The heroine asks to see him later. She and the servant will go and inspect the hall. The woman is thinking about what she'll do next. She desperately needs a drink and a chance to come to her senses. It's Askin's first time at such an event, and she doesn't need to drag him along. The heroine asks him to wait for her at the entrance while she goes to get some alcohol. The brunette watches Asia. She leaves him. Her hair seems to sparkle with the stars that he happened to see at night. He is torn from his thoughts by a conversation between two aristocrats about how dark the lady's hair is, like dirt. The discussion doesn't end with just the hairstyle. They then notice her dissatisfied face. The younger one has abilities, but the older one never acquired them, and she has the same decoration on her neck as the younger Ova. The lady is known for constantly copying her sister, and this is probably the reason she did what she did. The young man remembers when they were discussing him, thinking that since he was a worthless orphan, even if he died, no one would notice. Asia's voice is heard. The hero immediately hurries to her and finds a strange picture. No one has the right to whisper behind someone's back, no matter what their status. Next time their tongue will be torn out. Meeting Askin's gaze, the heroine asks him to leave. She could not control herself and lost her temper. In a sense she is no different from the original girl, only not as cruel. The brunette is calm. He wonders if the mistress would really cut out the stranger's tongue. She clears her throat. Of course it's not true. She doesn't know how to do that, however. What was said was not a lie, only a warning. Some people just don't understand when they are spoken to in a nice way. Everything constantly needs to be explained. It seemed that the lady was capable of many things, even of evil. When a young man is asked how he was at the ball, he notes that there was nothing special there. The lady thought that the event itself would be at least somewhat enjoyable, but what happened threw the hero off track, and Asia, who behaved terribly in the mansion, found herself the object of ridicule from the other nobles. The society of the nobility is cruel. They praise the weak with sweet words, but they mercilessly trample on the weak. Brelova the elder ended up on the side of the weak, all because of the lack of special powers to control water. When the maiden appeared before those people, there was a feeling as if she had fought back against her offenders. For some reason, what happened was inspiring for the assistant. He did not know how to describe his emotions. Askin never liked places like balls, even though he had never been to one, but history was not hateful to him. It was as if he felt nothing. He himself did not know what he could have liked in Asia's rude behavior. His attention turns to the woman standing next to him, his gaze studying her facial features and beautiful hair, and for the first time, he looks at her without hidden hostility. A voice is heard in the garden. The lady is the first to react. With a slight movement of her hand, she grabs the young man and drags him along with her. They end up in the bushes. Putting a finger to her lips, she asks him not to make a sound. The guy with red hair, dressed in a beautiful uniform, is visible on the path. The conversation is about friendship with Brelova, which will help in the future. Asia was not mistaken. After all, she is facing the main character of Loved by God. Roel is talking to someone else. It seems, judging by the description from the book, his faithful servant Raigald is next to him. The master notes that his desires boil down to one thing: to make the empire stronger. The ball is being held in honor of a birthday, but the young man has to curry favor with someone he dislikes. Obviously, the lady shouldn't have heard these words. If her participation comes to light, she will ruin everything in the future. The lady wants to leave quietly. She shouldn't have sat in the bushes, and now there's only one way out. Askin agrees, and they are going to carefully leave the shelter. At the most inopportune moment, Noaxi appears. The prince immediately turns his attention to the trio. He did not think that people would go so far from the banquet hall. Brelova Jr. is the first to react, introducing herself and explaining the situation. She couldn't find her sister in the ballroom, so she went to look for her in the garden, hoping for the best. His Highness clears his throat nervously. A strange conversation has taken place, and he would like to clarify the details, but the blonde declares that there is no point in this. The woman shows her displeasure. She does not want to bother the gentleman. Noticing that she has also grown out of the age of playing with dolls, it becomes clear that she heard everything to the very last word. Nox's eyes flashed. If the man meant how he didn't want to talk, then yes, she understood everything. The girl grabbed her sister's hand, not letting her utter a word. They leave first, and the blonde wishes the gentleman a happy birthday. Asia is in a panic. Everything is ruined. She was only going to bring these two together and add a little honey to their relationship, but it will all be useless. The Duchess snorts with displeasure when they are left alone. She expresses her feelings. Of course, no one expected such unceremonious conversations from His Highness the Crown Prince. The situation in the ballroom is no better. At the ball, people approached my sister and said stupid things about Tanasia. The woman noticed the incident and, worried, followed the footsteps into the garden. That's why she treated our Okshak. The lady doesn't care about her emotional wounds, she cares about her life. The heroine cannot watch how people destroy their relationship laughing. The girl explains that everything was misunderstood. What happened needs to be corrected. Blue Rise doesn't know what exactly she managed to hear, but His Majesty is a good man, and for Arwen to become a powerful empire, harmony between the Emperor's family and the nobility is important. Harmony cannot please everyone, and Noexi is still dissatisfied. The lady wants to prove that a person should not be judged by one phrase. His Highness is just a little vain. He has been learning fencing since he was 5 years old, and is also a strategist who has never lost in staged fights, and that's not all of his merits. The hero has a good appearance. His sparkling eyes and pinkish lips attract attention. There are many aristocrats in the capital who cannot resist falling in love with him just by looking into his eyes. It is worth understanding that Roel is a promising person. From intelligence to physical strength and beauty, he has no flaws. Tanasia does not like the prince. She does not like quarrels due to misunderstandings. Brelova agrees to talk to Erwin. She will do it only for her sister. They are about to leave, but at the last moment, Madame Teryu appears. The woman is surprised when Brelova doesn't remember why she was called. The heroine wanted to show everyone her ability to control water. Many are looking forward to this spectacle, saying it will be beautiful. When Madame mentioned why she came, Tanasia remembered a scene from the novel that was about to happen. There was a reason why Rowan, no Exia began to be drawn to each other. At the center of the reason is another villain of the story, namely Liana Chryssia. She wanted to humiliate the girl, so she snuck up and blew up a confetti popper while there was a demonstration of water control. As planned, the lady demonstrating her abilities was then frightened by the sound of firecrackers, so the water flew in all directions. The one who obstructed the flow of water was the crown prince. The sister offers to talk to the prince first, but she is refused. There are people waiting in the hall, and if we are talking about the heir, he will also come to watch the demonstration. Teryu is right, so Tanasia is left alone. I will talk to him after I finish the performance. The woman has no choice but to calmly agree. She promises that she will come to the ballroom a little later. For now, she needs a little time to sort out her thoughts in her head. Askin is asked to find Lady Chryssia. From the book it was clear that since they both hated Noexia, being on the same side, they found a lot in common, deciding to start a so-called friendship. By the time the performance began, the maiden was already in the hall. She was hiding behind one of the columns to give her servants a signal. The most important thing was to distract her attention, and by a little time, Tanasia asks if the servant knows what the young lady who comes to the mansion quite often looks like. He nods, in which case he should detain her, so that she does not dare to go back to the banquet hall. The woman asks for help, and then lets Iskana go. All that's left is to try to find Urok, and try to persuade him to talk to Brelova Jr., and improve their relationship. There was a sincere hope inside my heart that everything would go according to plan, but as a rule, nothing ever goes according to plan, and this time, as usual, everything failed miserably. A little earlier, the lady threw all her efforts into finding the young man. She found him surrounded by aristocrats, which means that what is happening is still different from the original story. Tanasia comes up and introduces herself. They saw each other in the garden. It seems there was a misunderstanding between them. She would like to talk and clarify everything so that no questions arise in the future. The young man didn't think he would get such a chance, so he agrees. To be honest, since the three of them had a fight, it means they should find Noexia, and only then start to settle the relationship. Soon the two arrived in the middle of the hall, where the demonstration had already begun. Askin detained Chryssia, which meant there would be no shame. It seemed the prince was interested in the abilities, which would compensate for the incident. The blue-eyed girl had already relaxed when she noticed a young man in the crowd. He was holding a firecracker. This man was Liana's servant. There was definitely no point in expecting a good ending to the situation. Addressing His Highness, the heroine points out the obvious. Her sister demonstrates her abilities. It seems that we need to wait. It is better to come closer. A bad feeling lurks inside. Eroka closer to Noexia. However, time is running out. The servant is already getting ready to launch the firecracker, even without his mistress, and there is still an indecently large distance between the couple. Erwin will be able to block the water only in one case. If she makes him come a little closer, the woman carefully brings him closer. There is very little left, but then, a sharp pop, around confetti. During the events, completely out of her mind, the brunette pushed the man forward, and what was happening turned into a disaster. Due to her excitement, the heroine herself did not realize how she pushed the prince right under the stream of water. The time comes for excuses. The heroine was scared by the firecracker. That's why she did it. She feels guilty and holds out a handkerchief. The young man snorts. Are you asking me to believe this now? Noexa comes closer to sort out the situation. It seems that the hero is hinting at only one thing, that the whole situation was simply set up, one pushing, and the other pouring water. Perhaps because they are twins, they are worth each other in this sense. The red-haired one does not want to think that he is slandering without evidence. He considers himself the injured party. The lady tries to intervene, trying to smooth things over, but she is shouted at. Two voices, almost simultaneously, force her to shut up. She meant well. Everything ended in failure. A decision is made to go in search of Ascan. Liana is also nowhere to be seen. There are too many questions in the head. One of the servants says that he also did not see the two. They do not appear in the ballroom. The brunette notices that he heard a noise near the main entrance. This gives the lady an idea, and she immediately rushes forward along the corridor to find where the man is. Very soon, Ascan is found near one of the doors. He is asked a question, but there is no answer, because a woman's screams are heard that she will get out and will definitely take revenge. Krista was locked in a room. The assistant was ordered to somehow detain her. This was his best option. He had no other way to lure the lady inside. They lied to her about Tanasia waiting there. All this time they were watching the door, because it was necessary to detain the girl. He did not know what to do next. so he simply waited for the mistress to come back to sort everything out. The blue-eyed girl smiles. Everything is great. She just didn't expect the young man to be so inventive. The request was fulfilled perfectly. This cannot but please. Another sound is heard. Only this time it is much stronger, louder. It seems that the lady has started to break things. She cannot be kept waiting. Otherwise, the room will be completely destroyed in a fraction of half an hour. Tanasia quietly says that she will come in now. An enraged Krisha appears before her hair completely disheveled. Liana 9 menacingly asks how they dared to lock her in completely alone. The maiden asks not to take out her aggression on the servant. Initially, he was asked to close the lady, because Brelova wanted to meet with her. Unfortunately, she was a little late. They do not listen to her, because there is no point in believing in fables. The brunette apologizes. There is no need to worry. The plan with the firecracker was successful, however. The Duchess is interested in something. She remained in the hall and saw what happened. The confetti exploded without a signal. The Redian sighed. One grinned. She specifically ordered it to be done that way, just in case. Tanasia nods, immediately suggesting they head to the ballroom. Krisya refuses. She needs to tidy herself up. Her makeup has run a little. As soon as the door closes, she tests her strength. Now they react again, even stronger than usual. Liana has abilities because she is not so good at them. Her powers never attracted the attention of others. Even in the family, everything was compared to Noexia. Deep down, the lady understands that even if Brelova Jr. didn't exist, she still wouldn't have been recognized. Her father didn't like his daughter, but her brain was thinking about something else. Tanasia kept saying that she hated her sister. It played a role that they are of the same blood. So the lady, at the last moment, locked 9 in a remote room. Anger in her eyes again. You will pay for how you treated me. Got by. Having gone through what happened, the lady understood the truth. Human relationships are so complex and subtle that any deviation can lead to everything being ruined. The woman couldn't control herself, broke a glass, and went outside. So Noexia followed her. Rockel took it all the wrong way, and Liana doesn't trust her friend at all, as expected. It turns out that there are too many variables to rely on people, and a calm development of events. More guarantees are needed to prevent war with the Kahlua Empire. The maid knocks on the door, immediately returning to reality. Tanasia hears that the tutor has arrived. She wanted to rest a little, but she is definitely not ready to give up her lessons. Madelay brought a whole cart of books with her. These are materials that will help you decide on a career path. It is a very difficult choice and requires its own investment. The head of the family supported the teacher in helping his daughter decide. One day would not be enough to cover all the subjects. The discussion would continue in the next lesson. Very soon, the teacher becomes a little disappointed. It turns out that there is no area that interests the girl. Even after retelling all the materials, she does not think about anything. The heroine turns her gaze to the last book, which lies alone in front on the cart. They explain to her that it is about theories of magical engineering. Matella wanted to tell what could be learned from a book. The brunette thought that it would be inappropriate to recommend, so she tried to exclude this subject. However, perhaps there was a mistake. Magic engineering is weapons development, war preparation, military strength strengthening, and the like. It is a field that focuses on developing weapons for use in war. Blue-eyed is silent, and then calmly declares that she is ready to study the subject. It seems excellent to her. No one knows, but this is her lifeline. It is what will help her avoid death. As long as Askan is in the Brelova family, the Kahlua Empire's experiments with human weapons will not be successful. But if the weapons tests on humans are successful, they will immediately start a war. Woman should prepare for the best. To prepare for this time, a weapon will be created that can protect life. With her own hands, she will fix everything. However, magical engineering is not the main field. The Duchess smiles. She still wants to start classes. The teacher notes that starting so early will be difficult. They also need to involve another teacher who is an experiment in the field of magical engineering. Of course, waiting won't be a problem. Tanisha asks to hire the most talented teacher. The most important thing is that in the end, everything works out for them and everything goes well. The mercenaries are searching for number all over the area, checking every man. Tende and Andro don't know where to look for the one they need, because it seems as if he has disappeared into the ground. Even when he broke through the siege and escaped, one of them thought that everything would be fine. Unfortunately, the young man disappeared without a trace. Askin killed dozens of mercenaries during his escape. They should at least try to find him, just for the sake of revenge for starters. The authorities said that the abilities number had demonstrated back then were truly amazing, and if they caught the guy, the research would speed up and finally get off the ground. The young man takes out that very sedative that is so difficult to obtain. They say that not a single test subject has ever been able to resist it. In any case, the main thing is to keep Askin alive, and no one cares about his condition. A signal appears in the sky. It's white, which means the guy wasn't found in another area either. Andro is worried that they'll be forced to go to the capital, where it will be difficult to get around. Tende turns away. No matter where that puppy is hiding, it will just take a little longer, but in the end, they will still be able to find him. He won't hide anywhere. Nobody knows why Number escaped. If they knew, they could have shortened the search time. He probably just didn't like the lab, so he found the best way out of his strange situation. The young man is busy in the garden until a maid comes to him and asks him to look after her child, because she is very busy and did not notice that the child followed her, thinking that he remained in her room, as usually happens. The brunette experiences strange feelings. Everything inside him turns over when he remembers the moment from the laboratory. He had brothers and sisters there, whom he will never be able to forget. When the man was still in that place, he spent a long time in solitary confinement. He showed excellent results in testing, so they decided to separate him from all the other test subjects, and soon children with similar abilities began to live there. One day, Askin approached and asked how long he had been in the cell. There was no answer. They simply gave him a strange look, which made it perfectly clear that they would not have a conversation. The girl with scarlet hair, Number, is trying to explain that the 13th was in the cell before she was placed there, which means he has been there for a very long time, more than a few years for sure. During her entire stay, the little girl never heard the familiar voice. It was as if he didn't know how to talk. Even when she tried to talk to him, he never said anything in response, completely ignoring everyone. As time went on, the boys almost always spent time with the eldest. Some braided his hair, others played games with him, or simply continued to try to talk to him. Each time, everything was about the same as it should have been. Despite the boys' indifference, the children treated him sincerely and innocently, and thus, for the first time, he felt human warmth. Then he simply gradually began to open his heart, showing that he was glad that they were together. One day, the guys, as usual, were trying to figure out how Number got into the lab. He didn't remember, because he was very young then. Number also didn't remember anything, because he was lured in at the same young age. Most of the children in the cell were like this, simple orphans, or like Number, betrayed by poor parents, who were offered a little money in exchange for their own child. In fact, Askin remembered himself as a child, so he was affected by what was happening. He wanted to protect his brothers and sisters with all his might. However, one day everything ended. The side effects of the experiments began to appear. Protecting someone in hell is quite difficult. Children continued to be dragged into experiments. Even when they were bleeding from the mouth, no one cared at all about the defenseless children. Only Number was genuinely concerned about them. Once again, when they wanted to take the red-haired girl for an experiment, the brunette tried to stop the one who came for her. He got angry and wanted to hit the girl, but quickly realized that it was useless in such a state. She couldn't even be used. She was bleeding, and her body was numb. Since Number was so worried, they calmly suggested that he go with the girls would be released from the experiments, only if the young man agreed to go there. This also applied to the other test subjects. Askin's eyes were filled with disbelief, but he was willing to make the sacrifice. Going through dozens of tests in a row, his body was overloaded, and one day, it simply gave up. He lost consciousness and did not open his eyes for several days. After some time, when he finally came to his senses, he was brought back to the cell, where he saw strange traces of blood. Not understanding what had happened, the boy turned to the one who had brought him to find out everything. It turned out that the children were being used for experiments. Despair was reflected in his eyes, because he was promised that they would be left alone. The brunette remained unshakable. I told you this when you were fine. GM couldn't come to his senses for several days, so they needed to use someone. When they asked if the children were okay, there was no answer, so they asked the test subject, who remained in the cage, to ask the same question. The brunette rushed to the body, was wrapped in something strange, completely covered in blood. He was able to say that he was very cold, nothing more. His voice wavered. The kid could not answer how much blood he lost during the experiments. The guy continued shaking until he said that the children who were sent to the lab were brought back in a cart. The blue-eyed man was worried that the same would happen to him, that he would suffer in agony, that no one would need him until he died. It was all over. The boy grew cold in Askin's arms. Although there were no more babies, he was further exploited, which left him neither alive nor dead. The laboratory brought unbearable pain, physical and mental. The young man managed to escape from the cage, ironically, with the help of his body. But even so, there was no freedom. He was sold into slavery, without strength, and the mistress who bought him began to conduct experiments. Now the man couldn't stop thinking. Fragments were creeping into his head. Because Tanasia was different from the one he met at the slave market, he didn't understand what was going on in her head. A Virgo read one of the books about magical engineering. She doesn't know if there is anything similar on sale, but she wants it to be true. The lady learned something after reading the book for several days. In the world, due to the existence of magic, there is a much greater variety of weapons than in the modern world in which she lived before. They can be divided into two types: ordinary, and those created using general engineering technologies. Magical weapon is imbued with unique magic depending on the magic stone used. For example, if you make a sword with a water magic stone, you can use water attribute magic with it. The power varies from magic stone to magic stone, and although it is limited, the weapon has a completely different level of power than normal weapons, as it uses magic power to perform its feats. The presence or absence of ability determines power, and the national power of countries inevitably varies greatly depending on how many able people and magic weapons an empire has. In Arwen, there is not enough data to win the war. In the novel, as a result of experiments with human weapons, Askin was artificially given the power of fire. He controlled the fire that could not be extinguished. The ability is perfect for war, so if he gets to Kahlua again, there will be no one in the Empire who can stop him. If the young man continues to be with the mistress, this will not happen, but he plans to escape. The brunette plans to create a powerful weapon to be ready. She needs magic stones, however, the price for them is too high, and magical engineering itself is not a core discipline precisely because of this. For the same reason, Kahlua is trying to create a human weapon, the womb, and doesn't understand what to do. She might be better off creating a universal weapon that anyone can learn to use. Whether it's a nuclear bomb or a conventional weapon, it requires too many stones, and Tanasia doesn't understand if there is anything that can replace the consumables. The teacher distracts the girl. She herself did not notice how they came to her. Maud Ella is interested in what the lady is thinking about. They brought her what she asked for. In her hands, there is a beautiful box. The lady takes the bracelet. It is made of magical stones. Her eyes immediately light up. She wants to understand what kind of power this thing possesses. You can ask questions to the person who created this decoration. As the teacher promised, she brought a teacher of magical engineering. She promised, he is a fairly famous man. The old man's name is Varan Anad Tianandu. He is the one who wrote the book that Tanasia just read. He is an expert. For the blue-eyed girl, this is an honor, because she didn't even think that she would be able to meet like this. Brelova wants to introduce herself. As it so happened that she forgot about it, however, she is stopped and assured that the young man already knows everything. The old man is dissatisfied. If he had not trembled before the Marquis in the past, he would not have set foot in the estate. Otley spoke of her ward's genius, but in the end, studying is just a hobby for a noble lady. He has no intention of participating in the games, and has come to refuse. It is better not to study the subject. The girl seems completely calm. The lady does not know when she will meet teacher Vinian again. She has many questions that have accumulated. The blue-eyed man is surprised. He understands that the heroine is not so simple. He notes that it is an advanced piece of magical engineering that will be difficult to understand, however. It is unclear why the lady is so interested. A noble aristocrat should not know something like that. The brunette believes that this is in no way connected status, and the study of magical engineering are separate things. The heroine wants to understand even the deepest details, which is why she is so determined to study everything seriously. Tianandu raised an eyebrow in surprise. Apparently he hadn't been lied to about the lady wanting to study magical engineering. Naturally, there was no need to lie. He thought Mot Elle was exaggerating to deceive. The old man still agreed. He decided to explain the material after everything was finished. The maid reported Christia's arrival. The blue-eyed one is surprised that she arrived. It must be monthly. Outwardly, the two have a friendly relationship. The beauty asks him to wait for her in the room. She will come as soon as the lesson ends. The girl will surely understand. Christia, in fact, refuses to understand. She snorts with displeasure, declaring that her friend cannot have more important things to do than her. She asks that they bring her tea quickly. The maid nods, promising that she will have everything soon. The red one is angry. She thought that it was still profitable to pretend to be close to her. She even came to every meeting without missing a single one. This time, they decided to ignore her, apparently because the lady is the daughter of a maid. Familiar voice is heard behind the door. Askin comes inside. Her facial expression immediately changes. A smile lights up her. They finally met again. Last time the man locked her in the room, and now revenge will come. The woman smirks, and from his facial expression, she sees that the brunette is also glad to see her. Suddenly, the lady remembers that when Asia came to visit her at the estate, she beat up all the servants. It would be fair if Chrisia did something similar to at least one of the mistress's subordinates. It would be interesting to watch how the man would break down. After everything that happened, it would hurt him even more. After the lesson, the brunette says that she thinks she understood everything. A sheet of paper accidentally falls on the floor. When she picks it up, the teacher asks who drew it. It was me, I was just a bit bored. The heroine decides that she needs to explain how she imagined the weapon. If you pull the trigger, a magic ball should fly out. The power increases due to the rotation of the large ball. Even though the size of the weapon is small, the man helps to come up with the last detail that the lady hadn't thought of. Villainess is amazing. The heroine still has a lot of time. She's taking her first steps. The lady is accepted as their student. She is flattered that she has intrigued the old man. However, he is more interested in the weapon itself. They will complete the idea and obtain terrifying power. The gentleman turns to Maud Elle. He heard that she bought the magic bracelet. He asks to give the thing back. The maiden rise to refuse, because she bought the jewelry for the mistress. The blue-eyed man is going to give the student homework. The brunette does not know what power the bracelet has. If she does not even know this, his name will be tarnished. Asia listens to what she is told to do before the next lesson. She needs to figure out for herself what the function of the jewelry is and how it is used. The woman agrees, but doesn't know how to do it. The lady goes out into the corridor. She hears loud sounds. A maid runs up to her. She needs to follow her. Opening the door, Asia sees a terrible picture. Askin is lying on the floor in blood, and Chrisia is beating him. The woman brought a bat as a gift, but by the time her friend arrived, she had already tried it out first. It was specially made to order, and if you hit it, the pain would pierce right to the bones, and the sound of the blow was also very beautiful. Chrisia hits the man again. The lady is not going to tolerate it anymore. She gives a resounding slap, then she wants to hit her with a bat, but at the last moment, she changes her mind. There is no point in it. Her eyes are shining. She is even more ashamed than it seemed. Liana screams in surprise. It seems that everything has long been forgotten. She was the first to beat up a servant in a friend's mansion, and she didn't even pay attention. The woman explains that she doesn't care about what happened in the past, because she won't do that anymore. She gives a warning. Don't you dare touch my people. I won't put it that easily if you do that again. The red maid, one doesn't see the point. She won't be buried in high society. But also, it won't end with simple destruction. Brelovi's eldest daughter will destroy the lady, doing it in every possible way. Even though Liana is a servant's daughter, you can't talk to her like that. The woman jumps up. She will definitely make her former friend regret what happened. As soon as the door closes, the blue-eyed side girl runs up to Askan and examines his wounds. It is completely unclear how long he was beaten. Sharon is asked to call a doctor, and in the meantime, the girl will help the young man get up. The voice is very weak, but the young man asks why they are treating him like this. He does not understand why and what the heroine's goal is. Soon after this, the man completely loses consciousness, falling to the floor. The young man has that same dream again. He feels again that he will be caught now, and then everything will end. The brunette is already prepared for defeat, but then Asia grabs him and drags him somewhere into the bushes. Soon the young man opens his eyes. He feels a wet towel on his forehead. A blue-eyed woman is sitting next to him. She asks if the guy feels better. He still can't fully understand what is happening. The only thing that worries the hero is how he ended up in the hospital ward. The girl asks if he really doesn't remember anything. She was very scared for him when everything happened. It seems that Chrisia beat him. The young man reflexively used force, which means he will have to leave the estate earlier, so that he is not found. The lady checks his body temperature. She asks him to wait a little. Luckily, everything returned to normal. Askin asks to take his hand away. After all, he feels a little uncomfortable. The heroine feels like joking a little. She has every right to do so and smiles gently. The lady knows that if she leaves a man sweating, his temperature will rise again, and reaching her hands to his collar, she wants to straighten his shirt to free his body and allow him to breathe. Before this, Askin did not resist, because he thought that Chrisia would do something to her ex-friend. The brunette would feel pleased. Then, in such a case, the girl would be able to stand up for her subordinate even more. As was said last time, the servant is one of the closest people to the lady. She worries about him. She will be able to endure if the young man is hurt. This is of course wrong. All this time, the hero unconsciously held onto the mistress's hand, and suddenly breaking away, Askin noticed that a beautiful bracelet was dangling from her wrist. He was immediately asked if he knew anything about the jewelry. He nodded in response, saying that magically imbued objects were dangerous, so he should take off this thing. They refused, saying that it was homework from the teacher, and that magical engineering classes had recently started. The beauty knows the theory judging by the light color of the magic stone. There is a high probability that it has a light attribute, and silver was used as the material, which is not quite suitable for a precious magic stone. It's probably well known that magical engineers put a lock on their creations to protect against theft. The blue-eyed one is aware of everything. Any stranger who tries to use the bracelet will explode on the spot. Even knowing the whole situation, the beauty will do her homework, even if the teacher may be a weirdo, but there is a reason why he assigned this particular homework. Askin turns away, declaring that he is not worried at all. The Duchess is convinced that he has woken up, which means it is time to leave. If things get bad, she can always be called to help. The door closed. The young man remembers everything that was said. He cannot believe that he felt relief from the words of the promise. It is better not to think about Tunisia, because he will leave very soon, leave the estate, and never see the lady again. The Duchess, while Askin was recovering, decided to focus on the homework assigned by the teacher. It is unclear whether the bracelet had an original owner, or whether a seal would have to be installed. The magic stone needs to be spilled, but if the owner is the one who triggers the seal and an explosion occurs, even if the teacher is a strange person, he would not give a rejected task. It's unclear what Viren expects of his charge. The answer to this question will help her understand what needs to be done. The girl can judge by the color of the magic stone or the use of a material with silver properties. There is a high probability that the jewelry has light magic, but it is impossible to be sure without directly activating the power. Even the attempt to engrave a seal is dangerous. If the bracelet already belongs to someone, the lady must disassemble the bracelet and check whether it has an owner. Only in this way can she reveal all its secrets. If the owner does not refuse, the lady will test the jewelry for light magic. They went on and on. The girl tried to do everything correctly, during which time Askin managed to fully recover. His health improved. Few days later, the young man meets with the maid. He asks how the lady is doing. She replies that the mistress has not left the room again. They are worried about her, because although she said that she would eat, she asked to leave the food at the door. They try to talk to the brunette. It is obvious that Tunisia is not going to go out, even so she should not skip meals. All the food that was left at the door remained untouched. If the lady refuses again, Askin will inform her father. The woman imagines Orlando, and how angry he will be when everything comes to light. Carefully removing the device, she is about to leave, although she does not want to be distracted from the experiment. Once the threats have started, there is nothing to be done. Opening the door, the heroine asks to be taken to the dining room. There are huge bruises under her eyes. The maid groans. "Duchess, you are on the verge of fainting. The situation needs to be corrected." The brunette is busy, circling around her mistress, helping her sit down at the table. "The work is important, but you can't just stay in the room. You always need to take the utmost care of your health." The Duchess asks to leave because the noise causes indigestion, but they leave her. If you think about it, some time ago, the woman began eating with Askan. The chef always prepared dishes for two. They haven't had lunch together for a long time. The lady asks questions, clarifying how the guy is doing and how he feels. His answers are very simple, which begins to irritate a little. The brunette tries to exhale restrained lie, disappointment. Usually, the hero is straightforward, but this makes the situation even worse. The blue-eyed girl explains that she will continue to skip meals, but there is no point in worrying, because she will ask him to cook for her subordinate personally. Askin asks for only one thing. Even if the lady eats alone, she must not skip meals, because otherwise, it will be harmful. She nods. One cannot help but notice that the young man is behaving strangely, worse than usual. The homework is difficult, but the heroine promises herself that she will finish it as quickly as possible, and then talk to the servant. She needs to understand what is going on in his head. Soon, the heroine became convinced that the bracelet had no owner. All that remained was to activate the magic. The mechanism could not be activated near the estate, as it would wake everyone up. The lady would conduct the test in a place where no one was. The woman sneaks further, but hears a rustle behind her. Someone comes out from behind a tree trunk. It seems it is a knight of the Brella of a family. His name is Jen. It is difficult not to recognize him. After all, he is known to the general public. The hero is one of the characters who are important to the plot of The Beloved Saint. The maiden understands that she should explain herself before the young man misunderstands everything and makes claims. Askin emerges from the bushes. It turns out that Jen was talking not to the mistress, but to her servant, taking out his weapon, which is already at the ready. He asks for identification. He does not want to use force. The assistant holds a bag in his hands, and the reason why he was acting so strange immediately becomes clear. The lady thought about stopping the head of the knights, but the situation is not so easy to unravel. She will have to try hard. If it suddenly becomes clear that Askin is planning an escape, then he will be punished for it. The woman sharply pricks her finger. Blood immediately begins to flow from it. The launch was successful. Everything around becomes bright, all because of the light. The girl grabbed the young man by the hand and dragged him along with her. They needed to leave, and as quickly as possible, so that no problems would arise. The man who blocked the way had no weak points, none at all. If Askin had fought him directly, he would have definitely lost in a matter of seconds. He didn't think he would encounter someone like that. He had never met such people before. The hero has no idea whether he should run away from the estate earlier so as not to cause unnecessary problems. First, the lady decides that he needs to hide in her room. Closing the door, she turns to him with a question. The young man really wanted to run away. He answers honestly. After this, he becomes scared because it is clear what will happen next. He understands what kind of character the woman has. She is not so simple, even if she behaved well. Asia will start blaming the guy. She may accuse him of ingratitude, although she has been kind to him all this time, not to mention that she can experiment and mock him at first, as she did before. The hero made a plan, but kept it secret, not allowing anyone to find out any details. Even if he doesn't have much trust in Brelova, she's a little sad. She asked to take the bag. Taking out the money, the beauty calmly asks how long the subordinate wanted to live on such money. If he wants to hide his identity and avoid being caught, he needs a much larger sum, one that will suffice. In Iskana's place, the lady has long since completely robbed the room, since in any case the young man escapes. If the slave is caught escaping, his ankles will be cut off. There is no difference to refusing to steal. The blue man puts the jewelry in a bag and holds it out. The lady financed the escape. The lady does not want to say that she does not care. She wants to help as much as possible. There is disbelief in her eyes. The brunette asks why this is necessary. He does not understand why the heroine is doing this. Her actions are completely illogical. Previously, the guy's body aroused curiosity. Previously, they tried to get him to tell them how to obtain the same ability of the body. He doesn't know everything about this either, but he is ready to tell them everything that is known. Blue Eyes didn't know that they thought of her like that. She had already said several times that she didn't care about the ability anymore. She apologized. Kindness has nothing to do with it. I just want to help you escape. The brunette doesn't think he should believe in such things. After all, he's been deceived many times. He has to admit. The girl tried to win his favor at first. It was not because she wanted to find out information. The lady only wanted there to be no constraint in the relationship. However, the more good treatment the young man received, the more she observed bewilderment and doubt. Over time, the brunette began to see her subordinate as an ordinary guy. The reasons to treat him kindly disappeared. That was all. She no longer thought about anything. Bluehide told everything that interested Askan, although even if he continued asking questions, she would have nothing to answer. Footsteps and voices could be heard outside the door, and it became clear that someone had woken up. Now that it is known that the young man wants to escape, this changes everything, although he does not plan to escape that same day. As soon as Brelova sees an opportunity, she will drag him out of the estate, just in case he should take more clothes and food. Approaching her closet, the lady takes out warm clothes. She throws a cloak over her shoulders, asking if this will be enough. One should be careful on the streets. If he is caught with luggage, they will immediately suspect something is wrong. The lady asks the hero to go to his room in any case. He should be more careful. The main thing is that he doesn't catch anyone's eye. The man can use the heroine's name. If necessary, he can say that he was carrying out Brelova's orders. It's better to leave the rest to her. The brunette still doesn't believe it. He asks again to clarify. It becomes sad. Until the very end, they still don't believe her. What's happening is a little upsetting, but it's better to look at it from a different angle. The future is unknown, but Brelova, in any case, will be left completely alone. She thought that the relationship between them was gradually beginning to improve, but it turns out that this is not the case at all. Everything inside is turning upside down. If it were possible, the young heroine would prefer to protect the boy while he is near her, but she does not stop him from running away, because she thinks that this is what is her sincere wish. Instead of going further inside the mansion, the hero should follow to the end of the corridor. There will be a back door, which is used as an entrance. They will see each other again, but in the morning, the hero walks down the corridor, his thoughts preoccupied with the mistress. What happened still does not fit in his head. He was financed to escape, although it seemed that for the attempts, on the contrary, they would cut off his head, which would not end well. I remember the sad expression on the lady's face. She noticed that the relationship had improved, but now they would lose all the progress they had made. Asking himself doesn't notice how his face turned scarlet. Achish embarrassed by the memories alone, because nothing like this has ever happened before. In the mansion in the morning, it became so quiet that what happened last night seemed completely fictitious. At night, Brelova used a bracelet that is not easy to get on the market. Be that as it may, Jen noticed that she was the person who did it. The chief calls the lady to him. She opens the door to the corridor, where the knight is already waiting for her. He calmly promises that he will take the lady to the office. His face does not reflect any emotions, however, as usual. The woman follows him calmly, thinking about the novel. She has read and knows that Jen is not a talkative person, but even so, she is surprised that he is not going to utter a word at all. Tan Asia enters her father's office. The blonde man is busy with his own affairs, so he asks her to sit on the sofa, and when he finishes with the documents, they can talk calmly. Orlin looks tired, probably due to the amount of work. Finally, he speaks up, telling about Jen, who reported that he saw a suspicious man at night, but missed him because the stranger used magic. Of course, no one blames the girl, but she is asked if she has anything to say about what happened. As expected, the father knows everything. He knows that his daughter was in the kindergarten. He is simply giving her a chance to justify herself without jumping to conclusions. Looking down, the blue-eyed woman explains that it's true. She was outside last night. She used a magic bracelet. According to the teacher, the seal hadn't been applied yet. The conversation turns to homework. The lady took the thing apart and added a new formula. At night, she only wanted to check if everything was working as it should. Only a little time had passed since she began studying engineering, but the heroine had already begun to see results. She was so interested in it that it captivated her. The brunette wants to ask something else. The man noticed that then. Someone unknown entered the mansion, however. After the question, he answers that no traces of penetration or escape were found. Perhaps they considered someone from the mansion suspicious. The heroine pressed until the last. She needed to justify Ascan and what he had done. The lady did not want to wake anyone up, so then she quietly went outside. When she was outside, she called her servant, but she was unable to meet him because it was too dark there. Most likely, this is the reason why Jen noticed the slave. The knight, possessing great skills, immediately noticed that the silhouette belonged to someone young, not an adult. Orland, probably, was already aware of this. It remained to make them believe the story. There is no point in hiding Ascan's identity. We need to make sure that no one suspects that he attempted to escape. A story that is at least half true would be more believable. The blonde nods. What his daughter told him makes sense, but it's not just anyone living in the mansion. It's her and Noexia. He believes that safety is the most important thing. Even if it was a servant, he should be checked. The beauty freezes, becomes scared. But suddenly the gentleman expresses his desire to simply forget about what happened. It is easier to leave everything as it is, so that there are no additional problems or disagreements. The only thing Orlin asks is that nothing like this happens again. Otherwise an investigation will be immediately initiated, regardless of Ascan's guilt. Fortunately, everything worked out in her favor. Brelova wants to talk about something else. She would like a production laboratory to be created for her. It seems that this would be the best option. Everything for development. Orlin asks again in surprise. He doesn't quite understand what the girl is going to do. She probably has some approximate wishes that need to be heard. Magical engineering is the work of a lifetime. The heroine is trying to study it, but doing it at home is too difficult and risky, and it seems that what happened last night only confirms this. With a smile on his face, Brelovi promises to build a laboratory. Since the girl expresses a desire to study, he will indulge her. There is only one suitable building on the territory, and they will tell the specialists about it. As soon as the lady leaves, Jen follows the gentleman. What the lady said must be true, but still, one cannot deny the fact that she decided to hide part of what she told, and for what purposes is completely unclear. The blonde agrees, however. It doesn't matter, he already warned her. It looks like the girl studies hard, so the incident will be left alone. By the way, don't you think that Tamasia is similar to me? The knight asks again. Initially, the master thought that his daughter would be afraid to talk about what happened, but she even later asked for a laboratory, pointing out how it would be better for her. The study of magic occupies an important place in her life. The woman has a business streak. Perhaps she should study business in addition to magical engineering. The conversation is interrupted by a maid who brought tea for fatigue, which Tanasia asked for her father. It's time for food. The maid promises that if you hold on to something else, she will definitely serve it. You just have to ask. The lady sincerely thanks. She keeps thinking about the night. Since her father said that he would leave the incident, you can relax. Harland doesn't want to be talked into anything, because his ironclad rule about trusting people doesn't allow him to change anything. In other words, next time, Askin won't be able to avoid punishment. The lady will have to think longer, so that the young man can escape without problems. She will need to prepare enough. Finally, the servant arrives for dinner. He walks in with a sad face, which is typical of him. The young man is asked questions. At first, he does not react, but then he answers that he hid the jewelry well. No one will take anything from him. In this case, there is nothing more to worry about. The situation should improve further. The brunette remembers Jen, who, as it turns out, has unusual abilities. He could have told the leader about the strangeness. The heroine assures him that everything will be fine. She talked to her father. Oddly enough, the hero barely looks into the mistress's eyes. Besides, for half an hour, he has eaten almost nothing, sits looking at his plate, creating the feeling that he still does not trust. The maid brings refreshing drinks that she prepared. The woman waits for the door to close, and then lays out a map on the table. She wonders where the young man is going to run off to. He has probably already chosen a direction. There is a place to settle in Areva. The lady chose the place herself to be a backup option. They are far from the capital, but since it is a rural area, the people there are quite simple, and sometimes foreigners settle and live there. This is the best option out of those presented. The brunette interrupts the flow of words. They are getting to him too quickly. They can't help but embarrass him. His face is covered in a blush, but he assures that he doesn't have a fever and everything is fine. An attempt to touch his face with his hand is immediately stopped. As Ken wants to know if Brelova is taking everyone's temperature by touch, he doesn't like the fact that what's happening is being taken so calmly. Lucy doesn't understand what all this is about. If she's worried about a person's temperature rising, she'll check with a thermometer. She's just worried about her servant. The hero's hands are burning. He was holding on to Brelova's hand the whole time, but at the last moment he took his hand away. He doesn't feel bad. It's just that everything is confused in his head, making him not understand what is happening. He will think about the place that was offered to him. The young man jumps up and leaves the room. The maid who was standing near the exit thought that the mistress was making fun of him, but she justifies herself. She did nothing, although her face seemed incredibly red. In fact, the hero lied when he said that he had hidden the jewels well all night long. He took them out again, examining them, because if he had not seen the evidence, what had happened would have continued to seem like a dream. He couldn't fall asleep, only almost when the sun rose. For the first time, he didn't have nightmares. Instead, he dreamed of a lady who smiled easily. It was so pleasant that he couldn't believe it. What happened at dinner went beyond all boundaries. The aroma, the voice, everything was so vivid that it could never be compared to a dream. Until something like this happened, the young man did not realize what was happening. The head replays all the pleasant moments. The mistress prefers to protect the subordinate, until he decides to run away. Brelova is so beautiful that she even begins to irritate. Later, two people arrive to Asia. One introduces himself as Robin, and the other as Tyler. They will build a laboratory on the orders of the Duke. He asked them to come as quickly as possible. They arrived to discuss details with the client. The woman was waiting for them, and offered them a seat. Since Orlin himself had provided the specialists, they must be trustworthy, which was good news. Before the meeting, suitable locations were selected. When choosing, it is better to avoid places close to the city center, because they can interfere with research. The outskirts are also not an option. The lady is handed a piece of paper with the filled-in data, but she notes that she needs something like an underground bunker. She needs as many secret passages as possible so that she can escape unnoticed. In addition to this, a warehouse for storing food. The outer walls of the bunker must be built to withstand an attack. Tyler thinks it looks more like a military fortress. He guessed right on that, although he was speaking at random. The woman nods. She needs exactly what she asks for. In addition to the laboratory, the premises can be used for other, more important purposes. She is told that for such a construction, she needs to obtain permission from the master. By law, it is forbidden to build structures that could threaten the emperor. The blue-eyed girl shrugs. She just wants a strong outer wall and create a few secret passages. Of course she's right, however. Problems may arise if someone complains about the building. The brunette needs help. It doesn't matter what the building looks like from the outside, it just needs to be made more ordinary. The interior of the building is much more important. She hopes that the laboratory will be installed, and that all the details that the heroine mentioned earlier will be observed. The rest of us don't need to know about it. Ultimately, an agreement was reached regarding construction, and quite successfully, since the workers would bring new drawings and materials, and there was confidence that there were more ways to avoid death. The girl passes by the garden and hears a strange sound. She notices her sister, who is training her powers. Note obviously wants to improve after what happened at the ball. It seems as if she is about to collapse. She has no strength left at all. despite her enormous innate abilities. Exhausting the body is not worth it at all, especially if you do not take breaks. To compensate for the body's limitations, a method must be developed that would allow the use of magic constantly. However, Tanasia does not want to come closer, so as not to ruin everything even more. She is about to return to her place, but then she hears a scream. The desire changes. The brunette runs up to her sister and asks if everything is okay. She explains how she ended up there so quickly. The blonde wasn't hurt anywhere. She just didn't notice how everything went wrong. The water that was being poured into the glass jerked sharply. A wound formed on her hand. Too much blood. She needed to find a handkerchief. The woman is about to call the maids to help, but at the most inopportune moment it starts to rain. She could make an umbrella out of water, but her strength is almost completely gone, and there is no way out. Brel realizes there's no other way out. She quickly rips the hem of her dress and carefully wraps the wound, trying to keep rainwater from getting on the fabric, otherwise it will make things worse. The woman is about to go and call the servants. She is about to go out into the rain. The lady nods. She does not need to say anything, because she herself wants to help. Soon, the brunette found herself in the hall of the estate. Noexia was also brought in. They fussed around her, while the mistress dried her hair herself. The servants thought that she needed to take a warm bath so as not to accidentally get sick. The heroine doesn't know what would have happened if she hadn't passed by. The wound wasn't serious enough to be life-threatening, but it was raining heavily, and it would have been quite difficult. Tanasia should wash her hands. They are dirty. The blue side one hears how they discuss her. The maids think that Noshia's wound is not just a coincidence. None other than the sister pushed the woman into the wall, causing her to get hurt. It becomes clear why the lady's ears were itching. The subordinate girls are constantly gossiping behind her back. You need to say at least something to them, but if you look at it from the point of view of how the original Tanasia behaved, they are not so much to blame. Public opinion cannot be changed. It is better not to say anything. Suddenly Noexia will intervene. My sister ran in the rain to cure her, and others, for some reason, allow themselves to behave like this. It's strange, because usually the heroine never interfered in other people's affairs, believing that it would be better that way. The maids listen. They think that it is true. Nothing like that was said. The lady really did harass her sister all the time, but she doesn't care anymore. Raising her voice, the blonde orders them to shut up. It seems she misunderstood them. Initially, the heroine thought that they were simply caring for her and trying to protect her. However, she will no longer leave the situation just like that, because it has begun to cross all personal boundaries. To avoid taking measures lightly, the woman will first consult with the head butler and determine the appropriate punishment. Spreading rumors in the mansion will be a bad thing. Tanasia is standing behind the bathroom door. Fortunately, no one noticed her. You just need to stand and wait before going out. No such luck. Noexia turns to the girl. Sister, are you there? The Duchess was looking for the lady, because she had disappeared somewhere. She had not expected to hear such a thing at all. All this time she had been too stupid. She thought that the maids were overprotective of her. Leaving the room, the brunette explains that she doesn't care, so there's nothing to worry about. In the future, Noexia will be more careful if they start a fight with Tanasia. Smiling, they tell her again, I'm really fine. The girl was more interested in why the blonde was training her abilities all alone. She thought it would be better not to take the maids with her, because they would get tired of watching the same thing repeated over and over again. There was a conference coming up soon, so the training was dragging on for a long time. The novel said that people with special talent regularly gather every few years for a demonstration, and the system got its name. This is not a small event, held only among the residents of the Arwen Empire, but a huge gathering attended by people from neighboring countries. Noexia had always been considered the owner of the highest level of talent. The girl trained until she got injured just to show excellent results. The beauty must be tired. After all, she has to work hard to keep her place. The sister touches Noexia's head. She strokes it gently, all because she considers it commendable how much the lady works, putting everything she has into it. The heroine is also pleased by the fact that for the first time someone stood up for her. This can't help but make her happy. The blonde smiles back. I'm so happy. Tanasia doesn't want to get involved with the youngest, but she's so sweet that it's impossible not to take care. The conference was also a setting in the original story, something the lady couldn't forget. She sits and ponders what happened there, as it's important for her to learn some details to help the plot develop. Noexia and Robert first met at the royal palace, and the event became their second meeting place. It was there that the second main character, who would later fall in love with the girl, would appear. The heroine is not clear what to do last time she intervened, and as a result, everything was ruined. However, she cannot watch from the sidelines, not understanding where the situation is leading. The lady is distracted from her thoughts. Of course it is Vier and Ian. Just recently she told him that she wants to study magical engineering, but her thoughts are already somewhere else, definitely not in class. The man asks not to dwell on the pressing matters. The student should not tarnish his name at the conference. The girl asks again in surprise. The old man believes that Maele did not have time to tell him about the news. The old man will be one of those who will sit on the jury, and if he talks about a girl, it means only one thing, namely that she will be a participant. This is in the order of things, because Tanasia is a genius in the field of magical engineering. He didn't want to say it so the lady wouldn't get too proud. It took 10 years to figure out how to identify magic stones, but the girl easily identified everything just by reading a book. The lady is worthy of participating in the conference, so she is offered to demonstrate her abilities in magical engineering. The man has come up with an idea of how exactly the lady will do this. He has the perfect plan. There is a drawing on the table, a diagram of a pistol that Tanasia had sketched out. She asked for help then, because she thought that something was unfinished there. She exclaimed, "It's not all finished yet." Vea on Ian says, "There's no need to finish anything. Even if she just shows off the weapons developments, everyone will be shocked and fall out of their chairs. The scheme is very interesting." Blue-Eyed quickly understands everything. It is obvious that when the teacher accepted her as a student, he was counting on her presenting her invention. He shouts that he does not see a problem. He just wanted to show people the possibilities of magical engineering. The woman agrees, but after a while, she realizes that this was not entirely correct, even though she spoke confidently. But a weapon with magical stones cannot be used indefinitely. The lady's bracelet is one of the most powerful. Even one filled with light magic will stop working after 3 uses. The same applies to what was done with the help of developments. After 3 shots, the gun will be useless. To win the conference, you need to boost 3 shots, otherwise the value drops and there is no point in participating. Tanasia doesn't understand how she needs to increase her power. The heroine is interrupted from her thoughts. She almost crashed into a pole. Askin asks if she is going to meet with the teacher. There is not much time before the event, so the girl is worried. The young man will go with the lady. He is like a thread. He will always follow the needle. Strangely, but the hero immediately agrees. The lady clarifies why he suddenly changed his habits. The girl turns around. She is finally going to get to the lab to sort everything out. Before leaving, she is asked if she will return early, because they said that since it is the anniversary of the madam's death, the woman will be remembered. The only beauty that Orlin Brelovi loved, and the mother of Tanasia and no actually Rosina, the Duchess forgot when exactly she died. It was said in the novel, but nevertheless. If so, the father must be already drunk. Like a man who once read the story, the heroine is perfectly aware of the circumstances under which the woman died. Tanasia asks where the father is. He is in the office. The man is in a terrible state. He sits at the table, looking down at the pendant with a photograph of his late wife. The hero sighs sadly. He still remembers the day he met Cheryl. He was only 8 years old then, and the beauty was 5. She was the daughter of a wet nurse, and accidentally decided to become friends. Not paying attention to the difference in status, they used formal communication only when adults were nearby. When they were together, they called each other by name, as they had been together since childhood. Cheryl was in every moment. The man saw her in childhood, in her mischievous teenage years, and caught the moment when she turned into a beautiful girl. There was no person with whom the young man got along as well as with his future wife. She always made him happy, however. He did not realize his feelings for too long, and thus missed the moment when he needed to act. One day, the heroine told that she was going to get married. It was time for her to look for a groom. Her mother insisted that she get married. Recently, the lady met with the son of the owner of the store on the main street to arrange the wedding. At that moment, everything seemed to turn upside down. Orlando didn't understand how the girl would live with another man, how she would laugh with another man, raise children similar to both of them, and be with him all her life. Unfortunately, the hero couldn't understand the reason for the emotions boiling. Inside him, he tried to interfere with Cheryl's boys, threaten them, showing strength and power, and if words didn't help, he forced them to run away. The woman stopped the young man. She said that it was time to stop trying to ruin her life. "I know that you interfere in all my meetings." The brunette sincerely asked that the hero never interfere again. She was not someone who could be manipulated. Anyone who knew her from such a strong side inevitably fell in love with her. At that moment, the man was finally able to understand that he was doing everything solely because of his feelings. He declares that he is afraid, which is why he constantly interferes. Surprise was reflected on the face of his interlocutor. Warland admitted that he liked the lady, or more precisely, he loved her. Cheryl asked him not to joke like that, but they told her that it couldn't be a joke, his feelings were sincere. Not wanting to talk further, the brunette is going to run away. She looks at the situation realistically. She does not think that they can really be together. They are not children anymore. The girl is right about that. From childhood, they both realized how different their statuses were: a servant and a master who stood several steps higher, who people who simply had no future. Seeing the lady's gaze, the young man had nothing to say. He felt sad, but he could not back down. He asked the maiden to give him a little more time, so much so that no one would dare to say a word against the relationship. Oral and promised that he would become strong and change everything, and soon he fulfilled his promise by inheriting the family business and using business and social connections to increase the power of the Brel oath of his life. The brunette doubted until the very end. She knew that the gentleman had many marriage proposals, and that if he chose a man of low status, he would certainly regret it in the future. The man did not consider this a mistake, because he wanted to be together. Soon, they had their first kiss, and the days when Cheryl was so small and fragile that the young man was afraid to hug her were the ones he remembered most of all. The wedding took place exactly as the Duke had promised. Cheryl was dazzlingly beautiful in her white wedding dress. Happiness was blazing inside her as the Duke held Tanasia and no Exie in his arms. He needed nothing more. The man thought that they would be able to grow old together peacefully. He never wanted anything other than his beloved. However, his dreams, which seemed to be fulfilled, suffered a complete collapse. The girl was completely covered in blood. On the day when everything happened, the man held her in his arms, trying to promise that help would arrive soon. While he was away for several days due to work, unknown people entered the house and attacked the lady. Luminasas, unfortunately, returned too late. The woman asked for only one thing: to raise good people from no exem Tanasia, so that they would not be ashamed of themselves. If his wife hadn't asked him to take care of the girls back then, he would have given his life that same day to follow his beloved, even after years, with the moment when he took his last breath vividly before his eyes. The young man wanted revenge, but he couldn't find the one who fearlessly broke into the estate and killed Cheryl. Over the past years, the stranger had managed to completely cover his tracks. The fact that he was hiding meant that the criminal's status was not low. Jen is distracted from her memories. He knocks and comes in. He was not invited, but it was difficult not to know that the gentleman had overdone it. The young man had drunk too much, but even so, it is not enough for him. He wants to get more. There's a tray on the table. The cook has prepared snacks that are good for a hangover, but she made them wait at the door, so the knight brought it himself. Asia herself ordered it to be prepared. The lady said that if the father drinks in such quantities, it will be bad, so she sent snacks. The young man freezes. This concern pleases him, but at the same time causes confusion. He remembers when a woman sent tea for fatigue. Every day after Cheryl left her husband was pure hell. During this time, the daughter grew up a lot. Oral and was often absent from the mansion, and no Exon was too sleepy to eat breakfast. But on the day after the anniversary of her mother's death, the whole family always gathered in the morning to eat together. The young man remarks that he liked the snacks that were ordered to be prepared in the evening. The brunette nods. "I'm glad you like them. I sent them because I wanted you to take care of yourself while you were drinking." The girl decides to suggest that next time they have a drink together. The blonde raises an eyebrow in surprise. He definitely didn't expect something like that. Since the lady is she will drink non-yao's alcoholic drinks, and when she becomes an adult, she can drink alcohol. Two is always better than being alone. No Xi intervenes, noting that alcohol is harmful to health. Tan Asia notes that sometimes in life you need to have a drink, and when the girl grows up, she will understand herself. The father chuckles. If someone heard this, they would think that the lady drank alcohol. She completely forgot that in her new life she is. The young man had never thought about company, but since he was offered a drink together, it really wouldn't be a bad idea, and the youngest one also asked to join. There is a smile on her face. Family is the most important thing. The heroine had nothing like this in her past life, so she could not even imagine what it would be like to receive warmth and care. Though vague, memories from Tanasia's childhood sometimes come to mind, and because her past life was terrible, the memories seem especially precious. The only goal the girl had in the new world was life, a quiet life. She tried to avoid her death, however. She wanted to find the person who killed Cheryl. The original was unfinished, so even the heroine, even she didn't know who the criminal was. The book didn't want to reveal the truth about death for a long time. It's extremely difficult to imagine how huge a shadow is hidden behind it. The woman first has to finish developing the weapon. She continues to work. Askin is always nearby and helps with everything, bringing food and tea when the lady does not even have time for this. According to the young man, the drawing looks a little unusual. It seems easy to use due to its small size. but he is more concerned about how powerful it will be, because that is what decides. The heroine nods, and the assistant turns out to be right. Currently, there's a blind spot in power. The gun has a fire attribute, and the principle is that the magic stone whirls the fire to intensify it and create a large explosion. The young man suggests a solution: add something else to strengthen the fire, something like a magic stone with wind properties. The blue blonde girl asks again in surprise. She doesn't believe that this could be real. Given the size of the gun, which can only hold one stone, there is a limit to the power that a fireball of similar size, small enough to be small, can produce. The lady understands that it will be possible to combine the stones, that is, insert half and half, and thanks to the resulting synergy, the power can increase to the desired degree, which will allow the weapon to be presented. Until Askin suggested it, the girl didn't even think about improving her strength. She thought only about the drawing itself. In a fit of joy, she jumps on his neck and hugs him, happy that she was helped. The young man is a genius. The blue-side girl cannot help but rejoice, because now she has the right answer. The weapon will be powerful, which means it can be designed. The lady suddenly realizes that she hugged the young man against his will. He was not against it. Now it was time to go to the teacher to return the reference materials and tell the news, so she will stay there for some time. In the afternoon, they will go to the lab together, because help is needed with the books that need to be moved. The beauty hurries to the teacher, and upon entering, she immediately smiles. The woman shows a drawing. She has found a solution to increase power. She can make it much more powerful by improving and combining the magical stones of fire and wind. It will be an improved version. The old man was even more happy. As expected from his student, she did everything right. He wanted to pat her on the head, but then a servant came forward and looked at him with displeasure. Tan Asia introduces as Kana. She had heavy books today, so she took him with her. Clutching the bag, the man offers to arrange them on the empty bookshelf. One way or another, the time had come to try to assemble the work herself, and for this very reason, the girl hurried to the laboratory. She had a medal in mind, but she wanted to consult with Villainess. The two are talking about the pistol, but soon the old man notices that the servant's gaze is bothering him. He has been looking at him with eyes like he's ready to eat him for a long time now, and this can't help but frighten him. Askin doesn't say what happened, but from his expression, you can tell that the young man is truly uncomfortable. After the strategy was ready, the two headed back to the estate. The brunette didn't like the lab. It was dirty and cramped. The lady didn't care at all. On the contrary, a little mess made her feel at ease. It seems that Eskina doesn't like the room. The lady promises that she will no longer take the young man to a place where he doesn't want to be. He was asked to go there only once, and then only because of things that needed help with. The young man asks about the teacher. He wonders if the lady would have been left alone with him if the servant had not been there. Maybe you have special feelings for him. The guy thought they were close. At first, the man casually stroked the student's head, and then leaned over and whispered something. Next to him, his eyes were shining. His facial expression became angry. The teacher looked about years old. Knowing how old the lady is, knowing that she is the brunette, still asks such a question. Of course, for some, age is just a number in love, but the heroine has slightly different thoughts on this matter. Riffer and Ian had heard something like this. He would have probably laughed out loud. The brunette explains that the old man came close to the student. It was for the sake of conversation, so she still doesn't see how this is connected with the fact that she didn't like the lab. The young man admits that it is difficult for him to control his powers when he is emotionally unstable. It is not at all that he did not like the laboratory itself. The problem lies elsewhere. Seeing the lady in close contact with another person, the young man's finger turned to steel, and for a moment, it seemed that the force could no longer be controlled, so the hero had to act like this. The lady is aware that Askin is dedicated to his work. This is quite natural. She did not know how much she was being looked after. This is pleasant, but something like this can cause problems. This is a big problem that he cannot fully control the power. If the guy loses his temper, which can happen unexpectedly, not only the Duchess, but everyone else will be in danger. The heroine nods, saying that she understands everything, so she will try not to get too close to other people. This will not be difficult for her, since she does not communicate with many people, and there are not many acquaintances in her circle. Blua doesn't want to be misunderstood, but in return, she asks for something. Try to find a way to control your abilities, so that they don't manifest due to emotions. The brunette remembers being hugged. A clear picture emerges in his head. He asks for a favor. If he can find a way to control himself, he wants to be able to receive a reward. Although the control will be for Askan's use, and not for anyone else's, he would like to receive a reward for learning to control the power. The girl has already agreed. so she clarifies what the servant wishes to receive. Silence hangs in the carriage. It is not clear what is on the interlocutor's mind. As far as is known, the boy is not considered greedy. He should think carefully about his desire. When he can control the power, he will really be given everything he wants. The brunette asks what will happen if he asks for something valuable, trying not to show it. The woman agrees even to this. She hopes that in return they will not ask for her precious life, which she is trying with all her might to save. The workers made the drawings again, based on what the lady asked to be implemented. The secret passages were developed one after another by different specialists. As soon as the laboratory was built, the drawings would be disposed of. It's not that the Duchess trusts Robin, whom she's only seen twice, but she trusts her father, who picked him up. The outside will be made of brick, the inside of biltium. We are talking about a special material used for building military fortresses. Special attention will be paid to the construction of the bunker. The woman smiles, it suits her. The workers will be given enough time, so not everything will be enough, and they, in turn, will try to make the laboratory ideal. Soon after the conversation, construction and the creation of a full-fledged weapon begin with the help of the teacher. The modification also continued. Day after day, the lady tried to improve the work of the magic stones and continued her research. The conference was approaching. She needed to hurry. Boxes were brought to the lab. The teacher asked to add the part he took out from there to the design. The lady with trembling hands takes hold of the gun. That very moment has arrived. It is very important. Varen Ian congratulates us. Everything was a joint effort. The first weapon will be presented very soon. All that remains is to see the results of our work, and then we need to carry out a full launch. Special equipment was set up on the street to check everything. The man took measures to prevent people from walking nearby, so it was time to move forward. The lady was a little nervous before the shot. The young man wants him to try the gun first. It is the first development, which means it is completely unsafe. You need to try to protect yourself and step aside. Leaning closer, the hero reminds him that his body is special. Okay, if the weight misfires, if the body becomes steel, it will not suffer, so it will be more correct. The lady nods and asks first to put a seal with blood on the stone inside. Standing next to her, the lady teaches how to approach correctly before shooting. You should stretch your hand forward to aim. It is better to look at the target with both eyes, not paying attention to anything else. The brunette steps closer, forcing the woman to stay behind. He pulls the trigger, and then a loud sound erupts around as a bundle of magic flies forward. The target shatters into tiny pieces, crumbling into dust, and the teacher immediately laughs, as he knew it would work out. Anyone who sees such a miracle will be amazed at the ingenuity. Tanasia asks if the young man is okay. She is not as worried about the gun as she is about him. He nods. He was just a little surprised by the recoil, because it was stronger than expected. Amran Ian wants to hug the student, because he is in a rush of joy, but the beauty deftly dodges. It is time for them to leave. The girl laughs. How old am I? Remember, do you think that I will be happy hugging you? The young man thought that the girl intentionally dodged to avoid being touched. She explains that she follows her promise and tries not to be too friendly with other people. Ask and did not like the mistress's contact with others. The guy's body is fine, however. He is more interested in the weapon that the lady created. He could not even imagine that such a small weapon could have such enormous power, so he considers Tanasia an amazing person. The woman worked hard, nights and days, even skipping meals to bring this amazing invention to life, and I'll be honest, I have tremendous respect for you. The beauty smiles. She can't help but be glad that they treat her like this. Askin is not one of those who flatter without meaning. It's nice to hear. The lady suggests that when they return to the estate, they should eat something. Later, Noexia congratulates her sister. Now she will also be able to participate in the conference, however, since they have different directions. Most likely, they will spend more time apart. The father is glad that both his daughters will take part in the event. What they have already done is worthy of pride. The blue-eyed one is happy that she was simply given the opportunity. She doesn't need anything else. The girl needs to see how things develop further. Matele explained that her charge had developed a new magical weapon, but for now it will be held back and not shown to anyone, in order to save it for the event. Orlin himself decided to attend the conference to see for himself. He never said, but the Brel Ovi House is one of the biggest sponsors. As sponsors who donate the largest sums to the conference, they have the right to freely visit the institution. This does not change the fact that it is profitable. Usually the man did not participate, but since both daughters will appear in front of people, he cannot help but go. The girl doesn't understand. She doesn't know how it is for Noexi, but in the original, Orlin was more of a husband than a father. He was a man who dedicated himself to finding his wife Skiller, completely forgetting about his children, prioritizing. It's not that the young man was heartless, but he couldn't pay enough attention to his daughters. It seems that now he is changing, and this can only be good news. The woman remembers her past in this way. In that life, she had no family, so she really didn't know what it was like when parents were interested in her studies. She begins to understand that it's a blessing that now they will take care of her. The feeling of being cared for is pleasant, but unusual. Smiling, the brunette thanks the man for taking the time. Noexia will also work harder to show herself as best as possible and not lose face. Time passes. The day of the conference arrives. Two carriages arrive. The sister explains that since they are staying for several days, they needed to take a lot with them, and if they put the things in one carriage, it would be a bit cramped. After saying goodbye, they decide to see each other there. The girl thinks about who will be there, besides her sister, the main male character, and the second character. The lady cannot remember anyone, although it seems that there was someone else. The brunette suddenly distracts the mistress. If she is right in what she heard, Miss Christia will also participate. This is unexpected. Liana also has magical abilities, so it is logical that she will participate. The last time they saw each other was when the woman beat up the servant. Askin remembers it too, but the mention and the conversation itself make him lower his head. He wants to cheer him up a little, but he just needs to find a way. The maid shows that she is afraid that the lady might get into a fight again. Last time, they parted on bad terms, and there was no reconciliation after that. The young man is the most worried. After all, that quarrel should not have happened at all, because it was he who ruined everything. He asks him not to worry. The lady does not regret that last time everything ended like this. She does not even mind if they pounce on her, because then she will show who is on top. There is a whisper in the hall. Many believe that the lady came to support her sister. The Marquis took pity on his daughter and gave her a privilege, turning his attention to the young man. The lady understands that he is ready to kill everyone. His eyes are burning with anger. Blue Hyde assures that she doesn't care about anyone. However, the man doesn't experience the same feelings, and it becomes scary, because Askan's ability may activate, which will lead to worse consequences. Losing her temper, the woman orders him not to worry. He must obey. They go to a place where they cannot hear people whispering around. It's considered against the rules. Although Asia doesn't see a problem, they left specifically to make sure the hero was okay. He couldn't feel angry, so as not to put himself in danger. Their attention was diverted to something else. Crossing her arms over her chest, the woman calmly asks people not to pay attention and not to be upset about what happened. Value is not determined by strangers. It is determined by Brel over herself. The lady believes that she is confident in her strength, so they should go to the place where mana is measured. Before the competition, all participants are tested for the amount of strength they possess. Noexia is the first to enter. The lights start to glow. It is obvious that this is the maximum power. As expected, she is amazing. She is always considered the main contender for first place. You can't help but be proud of the younger one. It's time to check Christia. Looking down at the floor, she comes out, as in the original. Her magical power is at an average level. Then they asked Asia to go through. She is also one of the participants. The brunette goes over to her friend and laughs. She believes that mana shouldn't be measured when the result is obvious in itself. The lady has no special abilities. She could never come to the conference. She always stayed at home, drowning in her envy. Noexia approaches Miss. She does not understand why they laugh at her sister. Yes, she did not participate due to lack of ability, but this is quite natural now. She is a genius. The heroine walks onto the podium. As expected, there is no glow around, but she smiles. Christia does not understand what her plan is. Liana can laugh heartily, because after she sees the weapon, she immediately shuts up. The second step after measuring mana is the presentation of abilities. You need to prove how much your powers have improved. If this doesn't work, you'll have to step away and refuse to participate. Noexia, as usual, goes out first again. She carefully manages the water, as if it brings her joy. She fills all the standing bases. People in the hall begin to clap. No one doubted that her strength had increased. Liana also managed to show a good result. Next is Asia. She is participating because she was recognized as a genius in the field of magical engineering. Everyone is asked to pay attention to the demonstration of a new weapon that was invented. Those sitting in the jury see a small pistol with magical stones inserted into it, but they do not understand how it can be effective. They think that the Brel Ovi family nominated an incompetent person. Blue Eyes interrupts the conversation. He was going to watch the demonstration, but for some reason he hears a noise. Jen is asked to compile a list of those who spread false information in order to deal with it according to the law. The teacher's anticipation is intense. He watches the student closely. The assistant shows which direction Brelova can shoot. They want to test her firepower with a wooden target, but this doesn't suit the woman, so she chooses a huge stone target. In an instant, a huge stream of fire bursts from the barrel of the gun, which completely destroys the stone. The people around gasp. Not everyone expected this. Krisya freezes in horror. She did not suspect that Kay would be so powerful. The girl looks at the audience with inspiration. No Xia runs up to her. She is more delighted than anyone else, because she believed in her sister. She knew from the very beginning that she was a truly wonderful person. The teacher pesters everyone. He repeats that he raised such a person as Mrs. Tanasia. One cannot help but notice that he is inspired. Finally, Varan Ian received another recognition in high society. Jen approaches from behind. He addresses the lady, calmly announcing that the head wants to meet with his daughter. He is waiting in the next room. No Exie is asked to wait until her sister returns. There's something unusual in the atmosphere. Tanasia greets her father. The weapon she demonstrated back then seems to have been developed by the girl. She doesn't understand where the conversation is heading. Do you want to talk about Kay? Matella said that the girl was working on a pistol. She described it as perfect, however. The blonde could not imagine that it would be much more powerful than expected. On the one hand he was happy, on the other minus worried. Someone might decide to take advantage of the talent. Developing perfection like Kay means strengthening the national power of the empire, and at the same time, it can be seen as a threat to other countries. The conference is considered international, and is attended not only by residents of the country of Arwen. The demonstration will be perceived differently in each country, but the Duchess has thought of everything. The woman knows about the war with Kalua. The weapon was presented to make everyone think that the empire is not so simple. The pistol was installed with a lock so that it could not be used for improper purposes. With power comes responsibility, and if, in the future, a lady is asked to sell a weapon, she will definitely consult with her father, because he knows better than anyone who can be trusted and with whom one should not do business. Orlin thanks Tanasia. As she understood, the power was so strong that it made her nervous. However, joy was also present. Because of the anxiety, the man never said what he originally planned. I'm proud of you. The lady walks through the garden. People are whispering again around her. They saw the performance, but they know that the details of the weapon have not yet been revealed. They say that all the participants fell from shock. Views and attitudes change. Now there is no hostility in them, rather admiration. Someone kicks a stone. Looking around, the brunette sees a man near the tree. He has a mask on his face. My name is Deka-in. Even before he introduced himself, the woman already knew who he was. Ig Theon is the second main character, who will fall in love with Noaxier. It is strange that he did not speak to her, as it was in the original novel. In the book, the first meeting with the palace took place under the same conditions, when he stopped her not with a stone, which he kicked with his shoe. It is clear that history is distorted, but the meeting will only give the lady a headache, which is completely unnecessary. The original reason why the young man turned to Nopia was because he craved the ability to control water. Deka-in had always been very ambitious. He always wanted to reach the top. Although the young man currently lives as Ig Theon's adopted son, he is actually the illegitimate son of Emperor Lang-ent, and he desires to become the next emperor, which is considered his ultimate goal. In order to become the new ruler, the man seeks to befriend people with outstanding abilities. The reason why Arwen will break out into war in the future is that geographically, it is located between two empires. The lady's goal is to prevent war, so there is a high probability that she will seek cooperation with Lang-ent. She touches the young man's face, noticing that the mask looks unusual. The thing is that Ig Theon's traders cooperate with many countries, so they have to wear masks to keep their identity a secret, and until they become adults, they can't show their face to anyone. The young man touches the woman's face with his hand, and he casually remarks that he can show her face, because they will become a family, so it will only be a joy. Brelova believes that it is even romantic. Brelova hears that her smile is even nicer than it seemed. She is surprised. For the first time she hears that someone likes her smile. It seemed that she often gets compliments, but no, usually, no one hangs around. Askin appears. He calls the lady. She immediately asks how he managed to find out where she is. He notes that since the lady did not return for a long time, he had to go looking for her on his own. Noexa is already waiting in the room. The servant himself was also worried about where the woman had disappeared to. They decide to leave so as not to make the girl wait before they turn around. Ig Theon's voice is heard. He talks about Tanasia. The lady doesn't hear, but Askin heard everything. It is definitely considered that she is not just cute, but someone you want to conquer. Clenching his fists, The brunette swallows his anger, noticing that he is fine. The maid reports that she hasn't seen no exes since the opening. The young man thinks he was mistaken. Nothing more. The lady doesn't understand how he could be mistaken. Exhaling with irritation, she sits down. Having met with Deccan, the lady realized that it would not be easy with him, because he is quite a sly one. Sharon says that she was not able to eat as she planned. Because of this, her work is no longer so effective. A restaurant has opened nearby, and thanks to the lady, the woman will be able to try all the dishes she couldn't even imagine before, as Kana is also offered to eat as much as he needs. Very soon, someone approaches the table. A lady with pink hair introduces herself as Sellinger. She is from the Langent Empire. She was shocked when she saw the demonstration of Kin the Hall. The lady suggests that they become friends if she is suddenly given the opportunity. The blue-eyed woman nods. There is nothing wrong with building relationships. They will go for a walk in the garden. Approaching the exit, the woman notices Liana. With her are her friends. They were the ones who gathered together and laughed before the conference. The woman sees the hem of the dress of one of them and decides to take revenge by stepping on it with her foot. Scream is heard, and then Brelova is asked to watch her step. A smile appears on her face. It does not bode well. The girl thought that the material was too rough for a dress, but perfect for a carpet. Krisya also intervenes. Everyone understands that the lady did this on purpose. She is not going to tolerate even this. Her path is blocked. Besides this, the expressions on their faces are very irritating. Tanasia doesn't stop. She knocks over a glass of drink right onto Liana's hem. They want to threaten the brunette, noting that if she continues in the same spirit, everything will be very bad. But she doesn't listen. Her eyes glow with anger. It's a cold hatred, because compared to how she was humiliated before, this doesn't mean anything. Thanks to Brelova, the mediocre clothes will have to be changed. You should still be grateful to me. As soon as the lady leaves, there's a noise at the table. Even if the person in front of them was from the Duke's family, this is too much. The girl is asked if she is going to endure it. She does not understand why they look down on her. The woman looks forward. The maid and personal slave are still in the hall. It seems that an excellent plan comes to mind on how to take revenge, in a way that will affect Tanasia. The last time they saw each other, it seemed like the hero uncared about her servants. Sometimes a man himself talks about his weaknesses, not even realizing that he is dooming himself to failure. Having said that no one should touch her subordinates, the lady herself made a slip of the tongue touching Brel over herself is forbidden. There will be problems, but if you do something to a slave, in the worst case, you will have to pay, ransoming him. The lady arrives at the hall. The next day has crept up unnoticed. She will be watching the other participants, however. Someone pesters her again, wanting to talk at least for a minute, clarifying some points. The man wants to talk to learn more about the weapon he developed. He also wants to buy a copy, which is confusing. Sorry, but I have no intention of distributing my development yet. Brelova runs away. She's pretty fed up with everything. At any opportunity, strangers around her offer deals. They want to get the K pistol. The Marquis's worries were not in vain. If the lady had been younger, she would have spoken her mind and signed the contract, but the woman literally had to hide. She did not want to explain that she had no intention of distributing weapons. The beauty was offered favorable conditions, but even these conditions did not bother her at all. She did not want to have anything to do with those who constantly interfered with her. Once again, when the brunette tried to escape, she was suddenly dragged behind a column, thereby saving herself. The prince appeared in front of her. He asked her to remain silent until the customers dispersed, but he could not explain anything clearly. The young man addresses her by name. The blue-eyed girl is surprised, although she allowed it herself. What happened was somehow too unnatural, so she was a little lost. The answer is a smile. I'm glad. There is definitely no need to be grateful. The hero suddenly wants to ask about Kay, and the Duchess immediately tries to escape, but is stopped. At the last moment, the man says that he has no intention of disseminating it. The pistol will be difficult to distribute due to the limited number of shots. Plus, it contains too expensive stones. There are aspects that need to be adjusted before it can be put up for sale. Deccan is interested not in what the lady has created, but in what she will create in the future. He knows that the Marquis's daughter does not need help with finances, but the merchants of IG the honor ready to invest fully. It's true that the lady had no shortage of money, but in the field of magical engineering, the deeper the development, the more astronomical the cost, the greater the surplus, the better. The internal interest is simple. The young man hopes that investments will bring him money in the future. Refusal is heard, but it sounds as if the heroine has her own plans for the future. The conversation will focus on the interlocutor, who will be the one with the problems. The Duchess sees no reason for the leader of IG Theon to invest in magical weapons. Receiving help from them was not in the plans. She needs to find out how the weapons will be used. Rumors are even circulating in Arwen, so the lady should be aware that people continue to disappear in Kahlua. It seems that in their laboratories they are trying to create human weapons. They will be invincible. The Lang Ent Empire is paying close attention to rumors. In other words, they are trying to prepare for war with Kahlua, in which case the heroine will be only too happy to provide her direct assistance. The lady's expression immediately changed and she nodded. She was ready to consider the proposal, but she still needed to discuss it with her father, so she would have to imitate him a little. Just a day or two and the answer would be sent. Askin approaches the two. Decca-in leans towards the lady and whispers that he saw him last time. Tanasia explains that he is her personal servant, so it is normal that he is always near her. Even if it was a coincidence the first time, when it happens twice, it definitely can't be a coincidence. The teacher appears from behind. He shouts that he is glad to see his follower. He has already searched for her. Passing by Ascan, as if completely unaware of him, the man suggests that they go together to the marquee since the demonstration was a success. They urgently need to discuss future research. Besides everything, the gentleman needs to talk about the girl's future. She smiles, because she also needs to talk about the continuation of the Lang Ent Empire. She needs to make it before the rest of the events begin. The future prince asks for forgiveness and then leaves, but the servant doesn't seem to be going to tell what they talked about, because he still has some things to do, and the horse that was pulling the cart is in poor condition. The lady heard them talking, but could not hear the words. IG Theon advised the young man not to be greedy for what he could not make his own. Without further explanation, it became clear what the conversation would be about. An aristocrat and a slave is not a story that can have a happy ending. It pains Ascan to realize this, but the essence is the inevitable truth. Relationships as lovers will have no future, like breathing. The servant constantly feels the difference in status, which he cannot reduce. Over time the heart will be filled with feelings. The young man went to wash his face. Chrysia's voice is heard behind him when they dare to ask her what business they have with him. She smirks while her accomplice hits him on the back with a bat. It becomes dark around. The woman discusses the deal with her father. She explains that it seems the Lang Ent Empire is preparing to acquire a magical weapon. They are interested in it. Varian Ian recalls that he received a similar offer. It is expected that the Marquis knows that the Kahlua Empire is to blame for everything. It would be good to receive support from the merchants. The more they invest, the better. They are also trustworthy. They will invest not in the K but in other weapons. It is natural for them to want to build a stronger relationship. Everyone has seen how much potential Asia has in creating weapons. It cannot be denied that it is truly great. While this is possible, family provides support. But if weapons production is more than just a hobby, ultimately, dealers will have to handle distribution. Despite all the advantages, signing the contract right away is not worth it. It is better to choose between the merchants of the Arwen Empire too. After all, IG Theon could be betrayed by turning forces against him. Father asks for a condition regarding the impossibility of technology leakage. Asia plans to receive the contracts and send them to her father and teacher for review, but once everything is concluded, she will manage the funds herself. The Marquis believes that the girl can handle it. She's happy at heart. Finally, the lady has managed to gain recognition. In order not to disappoint Orlando, she needs to take responsibility. But it's believed that this will be quite realistic. She needs to share the news with no exa as soon as possible. The beauty remembers Ascan, most likely, but he has long since returned to his chambers, where he will be waiting for her. On the way she meets Sellinger. She respectfully bows her head and greets Brelova. The heroine is asked about the servant, because it was interesting what mistake he made. She calmly asks not to scold the guy too much, because he does not deserve it. Freezing in horror, the brunette asks again. She doesn't understand where the information came from that she would scold the young man. It turns out that just recently, he was beaten and dragged away in an unknown direction. The other ladies noticed what had happened because of the frightening state of things, because there was a lot of blood. Horror on her face, clutching her shoulders with her hands, the brunette almost begged to be told all the details. The guys Chrysia called hit the servant. He turned out to be resilient. If it were anyone else in his place, he would have been unconscious long ago. Perhaps he developed an immunity due to the way Brelova treats him. Leonie approaches. She has already said that she loves to see drops of tears rolling down the disobedient faces of the servants. The man would be released only if he cried and begged for mercy. But since he refuses, the lady herself will begin the punishment with cuts. At the last moment, Tanasia bursts in. She makes it in time, covering the young man with her back. There are cuts on his back, Everything around is covered in blood. Askin remembers his brothers and sisters in the laboratory. A fire begins to flare up from anger. It's scary because if control is lost, not only the people in the room, but everyone else participating in the conference will also be in danger. Attention needs to be shifted elsewhere. The lady leans her face against Askan's. She puts her hand to his cheek. She tries to calm him down, because in fact, everything is fine with her. Even the cuts are not scary. They pick her up in their arms to take her to the doctor. Before leaving, the girl threatens those gathered that if anyone mentions what happened, they will all be accused of attacking her using their abilities. Christia tries to justify herself, but no one will believe her. There are wounds on Tanasia's back, so if anything happens, the truth will be on her side. All that remains is to be angry, while not having the right to complete the plan of revenge. The young man carries the lady out into the street. He thinks that his beatings mean nothing. It's sad, because the past version of Tanasia is to blame for this. When we come, say that I fell down the stairs, so that no one knows about your powers. Later, No Exe, having learned about everything, came to visit her sister. Her father reported that her condition was not life-threatening, but of course it was better that no one disturb the peace. The lady said that she fell down the stairs, but just in case, they asked the servant again. He gave the same answer, saying that he found the lady lying near the stairs. He did not think that everything would end this way. Of course, they didn't believe them. After all, the wounds looked like something else, as if the girl had been cut. Perhaps it was some kind of animal. More needs to be found out, but the couple remains silent. Father is sad, but hopes that when No Exeaxu visit Tanasia, she will be the one to find out the information. Maybe at least this way she will be able to trust. Askin remembers the past. The Brelova who used to bully him has become different. He doesn't believe that a person can change so much. The young man understands that he needs to run away from Kulua with all his might, and from the current Tanasia. Before he doesn't want to run away at all, he needs to find the strength to leave, not to become attached to the place and to the people who give him care. The girl is worried. She doesn't understand what makes her sister hide the reason for her wounds. She begins to guess, but it would be better if the lady told her everything directly, because that way it will be much easier. Approaching the chambers, the blonde is surprised, because she sees a Roxa at the door. His mood immediately worsens. Sharon, opening the door, feels the tension that hangs in the air. They want to let the Duchess in first, but the red-haired man intervenes. The difference was only a few steps. He arrived first. Priority should be given to him. The prince should return as soon as he visits the lady. He does not have much time. The maiden rise to make him understand, but he does not listen. She begins to get angry. Obviously His Highness is used to receiving all the privileges. The maid decides not to wait for them to come to an agreement, so she goes in and asks the mistress, then goes out to say that they are invited to come in together, since it will be better for everyone. The brunette sees the young man and smiles. She apologizes for not being able to get up. She is pleased that she was visited, and still feels awkward about that incident. The red-haired man brushes it off. It didn't bother him at all. Arvon heard that the beauty loves flowers, so he hands over a bouquet. He brought medicines from the imperial palace, so if necessary, they can be used. If you need a good doctor, I will call. The woman immediately says that it is better to tell him as is. What the gentleman needs. The young man does not want to raise the topic while he is lying in a hospital bed, but he could not help but find out about the miracle of technology. The prince asks the lady to hold off on selling the pistol to other countries. She asks not to worry. She does not plan to do anything that could in any way harm Arwen's empire. The imperial palace plans to support inventions. More details will be provided in the document. The young man has to go, but before he goes out the door, he sticks his tongue out at Noe. The blonde is nervous. The sister should have seen that the gentleman is vindictive. She hates him. The woman smirks. In another world, they were the perfect couple, but it seems that everything is changing too quickly. She recalls her father's words. He asked her to go visit her sister and ask her the reason for the deception, because it was completely wrong. The beauty decides to ask directly about the truth. She knows that the wounds appeared because of Christia. My relationship with Liana hasn't been the best lately, and on top of that, the wounds look more like scratches from an animal than from falling down the stairs. I can't believe the lady is so smart. I have to tell her the truth, but keep it a secret. After some time, the student fully recovered. She met with her teacher, who asked that they meet at the mansion. They have a lot of unfinished work, but since they have time, everything will be fine. The lady looks at her servant. He sadly lowers his head. The wounds on his face have not healed. In fact, she feels sorry for him, because no one deserves such treatment. The blue-eyed woman asks that upon returning home, the young man have a good rest, because he needs it. He replies that he is completely fine, and does not need anything. The brunette will go in the carriage with No Exe. and the second will remain at his disposal. The conference ended. All the remaining demonstrations were skipped, because the maiden was recovering. Every movement continued to cause problems and pain, so the heroine planned to rest. There are times when the realization only comes to mind after having to endure something. Seeing Ascan's wounds, the lady felt the pain that he must have constantly experienced. In the past, the boy was experimented on in a laboratory, then Asia bullied him, and after that he was beaten twice by Liana. Ascan suffered and will continue to suffer. Brelova has a family, but he is completely alone. The lady is thinking that they could go on a trip to unwind a bit. She is about to leave her chambers, but she is met at the threshold. In her hands is the very bag where they put the jewelry. The young man speaks first. It turns out he came to return the bracelets and rings. He no longer needs them. He lowers his gaze when he finds the right words. I want to stay with you in this estate. The lady protected Ascan, which means she can continue to protect him, and he, in turn, will protect her. The heroine freezes. She never expected to hear something like this. After all, he wanted to run away. Liana was left alone, but she was able to understand something. Coming to the conclusion that the slave was an unusual person, she was planning what to do next. An ordinary person would have long since become crippled, but he was relatively okay. Ascan possesses the power of fire. No one has ever tried to find out who he really is. The girl is obliged to find out what Tanasia is hiding. Then revenge will be much easier. After the young man returned the jewelry, he began to behave differently. He helps clean the lady's room, until he notices the flowers. She calmly explains that the bouquet was brought by Rockel. He visited her when the conference was still taking place. The brunette accidentally knocks over a vase. He apologizes, justifying himself by saying that he only wanted to dust it and ended up breaking it. He's fine, but the flowers were hit by the shards, and the maid will be asked to prepare new ones. Not long ago, Ascan only did what he was ordered, but after what happened with Chrysia, he tries to do more to show himself in the best light. Even when the lady was busy with piled-up offers, he remained close. There were flowers in the room that were changed every day. After some time, the laboratory was finished. The building looks good from the outside, but inside it is even more amazing. Most of all, the teacher liked it. Those who finished the construction lead the lady to the second floor to show the laboratory. Martella and Vaughn can stay in this place as long as they want. The Marquis did his best, and will pay a decent sum. Tyler switches to a whisper. He suggests that they go inspect the bunker while the others are busy with other things, leaving Ascan with the teachers, in the hope that this will not lead to the activation of his abilities. Later, the woman thanks the workers for how they did everything. The laboratory is beautiful. After that, they go to the carriage to leave. Mott, Ella, and Valsa leave. Everyone has their own things to do. Lowering his voice, the young man asks where the lady went with the architect. She grabs his hand and then pulls him back into the room. I was just about to show you, follow me. The bottom floor is a bunker. There is nothing resembling a laboratory there. Food and water supplies were left there. One can consider this to be preparation for an unpredictable future. She mentions secret passages. The laboratory will be used not only by Asia, but also by her servant. He needs to know all the secrets. It would be good to practice his fire abilities. The walls are so strong that this makes practice possible. The lady has taken care of everything in advance. It will be bad if the hero is caught losing control of his abilities while training elsewhere. The brunette nods. I will do everything possible and protect you. Blutside becomes sad after she suffered. The subordinate often remarks that he will protect her. No need to protect me. You can just hide behind my back. The young man comes closer. He reminds her of the promise. Tanasia said that she will reward him if he manages to learn to control his power. The heroine said that she will give him everything he could wish for. Brelova looks at him in surprise. She began to feel that something was wrong. His feelings seemed to have changed, but there was no turning back. Time flies. The lady interferes. It is better to put aside thoughts about Ascana. She begins a new development. The biggest drawback of the pistol is in the magic stones. It is necessary to solve this, but not get rid of them, because some are important for the launch. The heroine conducted several experiments, trying everything that came to mind, but there were no satisfactory results. Smaller magic stones turned out to be less effective, and the small K did not work at all. The anxiety grew as the bunker's arrangements were completed. The lady was tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, but she couldn't miss Ascan's practice. The young man's fire never went out unless he controlled it himself. In order to be prepared for unforeseen circumstances, the materials inside had to be replaced with fire-resistant ones. The lady herself went behind glass to avoid being hurt. The brunette begins to carry out the task, but after a few minutes, his strength fades, and he abruptly falls to the floor. They run up to him. Next time, Brelova will not be in such a hurry. but it is important for her to know that everything is okay. The girl wants to help. She asks him to lean on her, but her body is suspiciously light, as if she is being allowed to not pull heavy things. She has to climb the stairs. It seems that everything is fine with the young man. By chance, the girl trips on a step. She almost falls, but she is caught. It becomes clear that the man is pretending to be weak. It is not clear why. Why was it necessary to pretend? They were worried about him. Askin picks the lord up in his arms. He doesn't explain the reason for the deception, but believes that he must help the duchess. She almost fell too. The lady should accept help and care. The blue curl turns her gaze to her neck. Marks are visible from under the shirt. A brilliant idea comes to mind. It is known that with the help of magical formulas, it is possible to create artificial abilities in a person. Gisli, the same thing can be tried with ordinary stones. The lady turns to her assistant. She has a request. They will need to try out what she came up with. The brunette asks her interlocutor to take off his shirt. She sits him down on a chair, promising that everything will be fine, because she only needs to look at the magic formulas to understand how it works. What is on Askin's body can be used in another case. It is possible that it will be possible to create artificial magic stones. It will be a little cheaper and much more profitable. The first formula is the most interesting. It can create fire from thin air. Another allows you to control fire and extinguish it. There is also a formula that makes the body steel, which protects against beatings. A woman lower. She sees how they are looking at her point. Blanks is slightly surprised. This makes her drop her pen. Why were you surprised when you looked at me? The brunette looked too closely. This was the reason, but this does not mean that the lady does not like this. He asks for forgiveness, because he put her in an awkward position. He will not do this again. The woman wants to apologize, but doesn't have time, because there's a knock on the door. It turns out that a guest has arrived, who introduced himself as a merchant from Igtheon. It's strange that he arrived without warning. Decca comes in and sits down on a chair. He notices that they haven't seen each other for quite a while. He doesn't say why he came. He says that he just missed her. The main purpose of the visit is the contract. This is obvious without explanation. As it turns out, the merchants accepted all the conditions, even the most unfavorable ones. The lady needs to bring something, but she's unsure whether it's okay to leave Askin with strangers. It seems there's a bad vibe between them. As soon as the door closed, there was silence. After a while, Decane notices that what is happening irritates him. He does not want to be incinerated with a look. The slave has no reason to listen, so he turns away. For a servant, the answer is insolent. The brunette asked calmly, and he doesn't like this. The merchant should keep quiet. He is playing at being overly friendly, and this can't help but irritate. The lady height, this is not necessary. She is simply imitating friendliness. Jumping up, the young man grabs his interlocutor by the collar. The other man is not just insolent, but genuinely doesn't understand what's going on. His hands are itching to hit him, but at the last moment, the young man stops. It becomes clear that the boy is trying to provoke. If you hit him, Tan Asia will be disappointed with his behavior. Letting go of the hero, he shakes off his hands. I still wouldn't have done anything like that. The man believes that he must protect the girl from people like her servant, because he himself does not know what he might do completely by accident. He mistakes mercy for an expression of love. They answer Decca in rudely, because it seems that he also takes his status for weakness, so he attacks others. He smirks, although for a second, surprise flashes across his face. I advised you out of pity. Tan Asia returns. She completed her task quickly enough. She was afraid that she would make her wait too long. The lady joins the conversation. She double-questioned herself, but she needs to take into account the opinions of her father and teacher. The young man promises that he will wait as long as necessary, but in exchange, he asks to stay in the estate for a while, or more precisely in the laboratory. There is no bed there, but it will be fine for him. As a merchant, the young man can even sleep in the open air. He wants to take a leisurely look around the room to understand what's going on there. They asked Asia to help show him around, but Askin says she's busy and he can take over. The man has changed his mind and will simply rest in the room. At night, the lady goes into the garden. She thought it would be easier, but as it turns out, it is difficult to find a stone on which to carve the formula. The beauty remembers that she needs to talk to a subordinate, and soon, a woman approaches the lake. She meets the gaze of someone she definitely didn't expect to see. In front of her is Decca. When asked what he is doing in the water, he spreads his arms. You can't see, I'm just washing myself. The beauty is looking for the stones needed for research. They are not so easy to find. There's a bath in the laboratory, but the merchant prefers to wash in running water. If this is so, the lady is getting ready to leave. The brunette comes out of the water. He's finished, so there's nothing more to do there. They throw a shirt in his face. asking him to get dressed. Asia is a little confused, because the young man himself said that he takes off his mask and shows his face only to clothes people. Brelova is sweet. If she cares about such a trifle, she thinks that this is wrong in relation to Deka-in's future wife. I wonder why the lady went out at night all alone. She didn't want to wake the maids. Everyone had already gone to rest. Maids are people too. They shouldn't be bothered unnecessarily. The hero sees this as her considering herself to be on the same level as her subordinates. Of course they have different statuses, but who wants to work at night? The boy remembers his childhood. He was bullied for any little thing, such as an overturned cup. Even the fact that he was the son of the head of the trade association did not stop anyone, because he was only adopted. As he grew older, women began to pester the young man, believing that he could not refuse them. Time after time, he was subjected to class discrimination, and no one wanted to stop it. His Majesty completely refused to acknowledge his son, because that son of a maid, he accidentally found out that his father was the emperor, although it was believed that it would be better to take the post of head of IG the On, without revealing the whole truth. Since that day, the hero lives with one goal, namely, to reveal his identity by becoming the next emperor of the Langent Empire. Askin's words come to mind. For him, status is a weakness. The words were true. It's impossible not to notice that Asia has a talent for calming people down. It becomes clear why her servant obeys so well. The blue-eyed girl doesn't immediately understand, but she is reminded of Askan. A woman decides to raise a topic that interests her. She asks what she and her subordinate talked about. His facial expression always worsens after the conversation. There is no point in reproaching him without reason. It is wrong. The boy is apparently arrogant, not just like that, but because he is confident that his mistress will protect him. You can't treat people like him well, otherwise, it will be fraught with consequences. They will think that they are special. Dekin asked if Lady Askana considered her a close person. She answered that she did not, and to some extent this was true. At first her attitude was really only a service in order to be able to survive in the future. Then, the heroine felt sorry for the simple guy. After a while, everything turned upside down. The lady began to feel some kind of kinship with him. She began to see herself in him, but only from a past life. Over time, more and more thoughts were in her head, and because of this, the feeling of being lost was increasing. The woman decided that the best thing to do was to take up work, thus fully occupying her thoughts. The young man tries to help her, at least by suggesting that she not skip meals, because due to the number and volume of tasks, the situation was gradually worsening. Never before had the hero unnoticed what they were doing for her. The woman began to realize every little thing that was being done for her. It began to seem that he was constantly taking care of the mistress, creating the best conditions for her. Asia often fell asleep right in the office, and whenever the young man noticed this, he asked her to go into the chambers and lie down on the bed. Then, the heroine did not react, pretending to be asleep, covered her shoulders with a cape and closed the door. My head hurts, even more than when I had to do the research. In order to get my thoughts in order, it will take a little more time. After everything is over, I need to talk to my subordinate. Deca-in left the laboratory, after which it was time to begin research on the creation of a new magic stone. At first, everything found was replaced with stones of volcanic origin. The heroine followed a certain hypothesis. The reason the ability transplant experiment succeeded on Ask, but not on others, was because his body was better able to accept the ability. The volcanic stone responded well to the fire magic formula, but its power did not reach the power of the organic magic stone to achieve the final result. Many formulas had to be combined. Asia's target was a small stone. She needed a slightly improved magical formula. She experimented with more than hundreds of combinations, mixing many ancient symbols, spell words and magical signs. The woman worked day and night until she managed to deliver what she had originally wanted, with the intended functions and amazing efficiency. The lady should succeed. All that remained was to conduct a test. After the shot, the beauty squealed joyfully. She had succeeded. The power was the same as that of an organic magic stone. She had finally managed to create a replacement for the K's biggest drawback. Askin came to help the lady up. She was thrown back by the shock wave. It had been a month since Deca-in left. She should rest, but the beauty did not agree. She wanted them to go for a little walk. After the lady returns to the estate, she should eat. Her body is completely weak. The blue-eyed one nods. She intently looks at the sky. A beautiful view opens up. Many stars decorate the world. The girl asks where Askin likes it best. She thinks that it's probably under the stars. Looking down and blushing, the young man remarks that it doesn't matter. The main thing is to be next to the mistress. It immediately becomes clear that this topic needs to be discussed. The way the hero describes his emotions, it sounds like he likes the lady, It's impossible to describe it any other way. She wants to know if it's true, or if his imagination decided to play a stupid joke. The brunette quietly says that there is no mistake. It is true. He reassures that he does not dare ask for more, because it would be wrong if this puts the heroine in a difficult situation. It is best to hide feelings, not show them. In fact, feelings put Tanasia in a difficult situation, because she does not deserve love. She previously said that she lost all her memories, all because of the flight from the horse, but in fact, she often reams with old memories. In most of the dreams, the heroine behaved incorrectly, mocking the servants, no kekshi and beating Ascan. She was such a person, so one cannot devote feelings to her. The young man's heart weakened. He began to rely on Brelova, because she was closest. There are plenty of good people in the world. Feelings will definitely change as soon as the hero meets his person. He stops the girl mid-my sentence. This is impossible, I assure you. Previously, the young man also had nightmares. They were almost every night. They tormented him. Dreams in which he was again dragged into the experiment room. Everything changed, because now the lady always saves him. There was a time when the brunette thought about revenge. For him the mistress was a nightmare in reality. But now he has strange feelings, as if he was in a pleasant dream. It may seem strange, but Tanasia is a different person then. The changed version of the girl definitely likes it. Her face turns red. The man said that he likes someone who has not been seen in the body of an aristocrat before, only he does not know about it. The heroine asks to leave her alone. It is better not to think about it. Instead, she suggests that in the near future they go on a trip, so that they can meet more people and gain new experiences. It's enough for the guy to be close, but that won't do, because otherwise, life will be spent in the Marquis's mansion and laboratory. It's wrong to narrow your world just to always help Brelova. All that remains is to agree, but before retreating, Ascan asks to listen. He is interested in whether, if his feelings do not change over time, he can hope for more. This unsettles him. The feelings are fleeting infatuation. They are hot, but not too large scale. They are difficult to control, but they will quickly disappear. The lady agrees to the deal, because she knows that after a while, he will forget that he was waiting for some kind of answer. The next day, Tanasia presents her new, improved weapon. The teacher cannot believe that the student has managed to do something that no one else thought possible. Father informs that the deal with the Igetheon merchants will have to be suspended first. His Majesty, the Emperor, will have to be informed of what has happened, so that there are no misunderstandings. The magic stone is the basis of magical engineering. Creating a replacement is another level. Tanasia can create a device that can completely replace the stones. It's only a matter of time. Magic units are used not only in engineering, but also as energy sources in everyday life, and the image of the lady is direct proof that it is possible to create things that will change the world, but one must be careful. The lady doesn't know what to do with her cooperation, but since she's not refusing, but merely asking for a deferment, she should listen to her elders. Decan was upset, but she understood where this was all leading. The developments had yielded amazing results. Tanasia needed to be convinced to sign the contract, at any cost. At night, people in black cloaks and masks appeared in Liana's chambers. They put weapons to the lady's throat, causing her to shake with fear inside. Piece of paper appears in her hands. The beauty immediately remembers everything. In front of her is the letter that she sent to the underworld to find out about that young man with black hair and golden eyes. The stranger orders the girl to tell everything she knows. He will not wait. If she does not speak, he will die. Since the mercenary is not a gentleman, it will not be difficult for him to bring the threat to reality. With tears in her eyes and a trembling voice, the girl agrees and begins to say that the letter was about a personal servant. Tanasia be a real Ova's assistant. The mercenary's expressions change. One of them asks to close her eyes and count till she opens them. There is no one in the room anymore. A maid who came in asks a question, while the mistress laughs nervously. Just now, some guys were asking about Ascan. Running out of the room, the maid rushes to report the news. She remembers that during the conference, they approached her, promising to give her protection, knowing how Krisyat treats servants, in exchange for one small favor. Having written a note, the brunette sends it along with a dove. It's raining outside, but she wants the bird to be able to fly without problems. Tanasia sets off on a journey. Her sister sees her off, who takes a ring out of her pocket. She asked the head of the family for it, and of course, it is not considered an ordinary piece of jewelry. The ring is made of a magical water stone. Having fun near water can be dangerous, so it must be worn. The woman thanks him. She will definitely bring a gift from her trip. They also wished Ascan good luck, so that he would arrive safe and sound. The beauty sat inside the carriage and examined the new decoration. The woman can't help but be happy that she feels no Exia's kindness. The brunette becomes sad. He himself cannot explain how he feels. He thought that he would like to do something similar for the mistress. However, he did not have such an opportunity. The girl decides that there is no point in delaying. She initially thought that she would give the scroll when they arrive at the place, but it seems better to do it a little earlier. When asked about what is inside, the lady calmly answers, "Your slave contract." Earlier, the lady had already said that she would help expand the world. Although it was difficult to convince the father, he gave a whole lecture about how, if rumors suddenly started, it could ruin the reputation of the entire family. Even if the young man destroys the document, he will not immediately become a citizen of the empire. However, a woman can help him obtain citizenship, so the hero will be able to do more things independently. The facial expression changed even more. Askin turned pale, as if he was scared. Lowering his head, he asks if Asia wants him to leave. There is no other explanation for why they are trying to give him freedom so persistently. The young man no longer desires anything that he can get. He just wants to stay close to the lady. Sitting closer, she remembers that attempt to leave the mansion. Then the girl said that she was sorry that the subordinate left. The feelings haven't changed much, but now it's even more difficult for the beauty. It's hard for her to cope with her emotions. If the guy left like that, it would be even sadder than then. The brunette is sure that she will be very upset by the fact that the man is leaving the estate, because she managed to get to know him better. She did not think about driving him away, because it is wrong. It would be right for the hero to have his own choice to stay, leave, or return. Fortunately, the words helped, and a calm atmosphere hung in the carriage. The Duchess no longer had to worry about what had happened. As Kanna is handed a list, he takes it from her hands and then hugs her tightly. The lady is cruel, but in another sense, when she behaves so sweetly, it is difficult not to love her. On the contrary, affection only grows. Changing the subject, the heroine talks about traveling the village. They're heading to will be hosting a festival, and it would be best to stop by. The woman feels good in his arms. Her back is warm and broad, but she tries not to think about it. The boy is only. Noexai looks at the beautiful sunset. Half a day has passed. Asia must have already reached her destination. A dove lands on the windowsill. It brought with it a letter from Chrissy's mansion. Blueside recalls a conversation with her sister, who admitted that the wounds on her back were caused by the lady. She asked that everything be kept a secret from her father, and asked for one favor. The brunette wanted Brelova to keep an eye on Liana and those around her, because back then, her body hadn't yet recovered, and the girl could only trust her. The aristocrat had seen something she shouldn't have. She had been warned, but she couldn't be trusted. I'd like to know what exactly Liana saw, but it seems like a difficult task to tell. The heroine assures me that she doesn't need to know the details. She'll help even if it's just like that, because that's what she wants to, and it would be better that way. In order to establish surveillance, Brelova found a person in need of help, the maid Ella, who was promised protection only if she reported on all matters from the estate. Looking at the letter, Noexia bites her lip. She is interested to know the contents, but since it is Asia's secret, she should not read the letter without permission. It must be urgently forwarded to the villa. The head of the Igton trading company, Louivan, summons his son. He heard that the marquise had gone on a trip. They say she left with a minimal number of people, and almost no security. The young man understands that he will most likely be asked to kidnap her. A little earlier, the hero sent a letter to the Brelovi estate. Immediately after that conversation, he does not believe it, but it is obvious that his father is monitoring his letters. He was monitoring because he saw a connection with Asia. The lady is too smart to be trusted. She recently created something that can replace magic stones. There are many enemies in the estate, so recruiting the offended was not so difficult. Deka doesn't understand how anyone could be offended by such a bright woman. Leaving abilities in Ivan is too dangerous, so the merchants are lucky that the heroine set off on a journey with only a few people with her. The Redmine throws up his hands. He's talking about an aristocrat. If something goes wrong, problems will arise. It could be risky for the trading company. The young man doesn't know how to fulfill his desire. Rough voice is heard. The Archduke of the Empire of Langet Minus, Rettenday, steps forward. He declares that if the youth does not agree with the plans, he always has the right to leave the stone. Everything is approved by the emperor himself. Louivan explains in more detail that the son must understand that the kidnapping will happen no matter what, but if he is the kidnapper, he will be able to take care of Brelova, doing everything as it should be. The lady is as happy as a child. There is a pleasant aroma in the street. The flower festival is to blame for everything, and indeed, it is difficult not to notice that flowers are scattered around. There is a flower near each house. In the distance, a stall with flower crowns can be seen. The heroine picks out a blue one for herself, asking which one Askin wants to buy. He refuses, but that won't do, and one of the flowers ends up in his hair. Evening creeps up unnoticed. It's already late outside, but the heroine announces that the next day, a man is allowed to go out into the village alone, to see the surroundings, talk to people, or buy something he's needed for a long time. The brunette has no hobby. He likes to clean Asia's room and her laboratory. The girl asks something else, how he will live when he leaves the estate. I would like to be where no one can find me. With the body that was left after all the experiments, the boy will not be able to live like an ordinary person. He will never be like everyone else. He will have to come to terms with what he has. An ordinary person is someone who can return home where his family is waiting for him, but he doesn't have that because his home is a laboratory that he doesn't want to go into. The beauty smiles. She wants to reassure the man. Something similar can happen to him too. His life is not over. He too can become an ordinary person. The girl wants the hero to have everything he could ever want, and she will help him find a family and a home where he will return even when it seems like there is no way out. Your face turns red when you talk about it. It really seems possible. The brunette smiles. The marquise touches his face. When you smile, you frown. It's unusual for Ascan to smile. He needs to find reasons to be happy more often. The blue-eyed girl sees the young man smiling for the first time, and it looks more beautiful than she could have imagined. Dove arrived from the capital, straight to the estate, with a letter straight for Lady Tanasia. The manager approaches and asks to deliver the message. It is about the IGT trading company. Man from the trade association is heading to the Biorilovs. There is too much news for the lady, so they ask where the aristocrat is, and say that she is in her chambers. The woman asked not to let anyone in. She had her own business. They stayed together with Ascan. He wanted to show something. It's a secret. No one else can see it. Ascan stands in the middle of the room. He extends his hand. A blue fire flares up. Tanasia begins to understand where this is leading. The young man can control his abilities. He did everything to achieve his goal. The control is still not perfect, but the level is not bad. The heroine spent a whole month on research while she was focused on it. The assistant trained. The woman stroked the guy on the head and spoke words of praise. He was silent, and then spoke about the promise. The lady promised that she would give what was asked for. She also said that even if he asked for something very valuable, she would still give her consent. The brunette nods. The young man wants to get what he asked for. He needs a kiss. He could not dream of anything else. All the time he thought only about this. Looking straight into his eyes in surprise, the mistress asks again. She didn't think that under the influence of feelings, her subordinate would want something like this. He wanted it from the very beginning. After all the conversations on this topic, the guy knows what's in the girl's heart. If he puts the woman in a difficult position with his request, then he can pretend that he didn't ask for anything. The line that the lady drew loses all meaning. Even though the young man said that if anything happens, you can forget about everything. He looks very sad. The expression on his face screams that the boy is hoping for a kiss. After that night, the lady tried to behave as usual. Maybe it looks like ambiguous behavior. That conversation, on the contrary, became a stabilizer. Perhaps this feeling is because the body is 15 years old. Every time Askin comes closer, looks into my eyes and confesses his feelings, everything inside me turns over like a flash of fire. Everything explodes. I'll have to refuse. I'm sorry, a kiss is impossible. The beauty came up with the perfect option. Maybe it would suit the young man. They could pretend to kiss, but not touch their lips, so as not to feel too much emotion for each other. I turn away. The hero nods. This is the only intimacy they can allow in their relationship, because their relationship is doomed to failure from the very beginning. In her head, like an echo, she hears the words that were said that day when they looked at the stars. The young man said that he liked the version of Tanasia that she had turned into, so as a sign of gratitude, she was ready to imitate a kiss. They almost touched lips, being only centimeters away from each other. They were distracted. The estate manager called the lady. She immediately exclaimed. She told no one to come in, even with a warning. The man says he has urgent business. A pigeon has arrived from the capital, bringing with it a message sent by Lady Noexia, who attached a small note to it. At night, unknown people asked Chrisia about a certain Ascan. No one saw them personally, but Liana said that they intended to finish off the man. Horror is reflected in his eyes. The realization comes too quickly. If the unknown people are looking for information about Brel Ov's personal servant, then he needs to leave as quickly as possible. People from Kalua might come for him. Not understanding what she was talking about, the subordinate asks how the lady learned all this from just one note. She speaks quickly. It would take too long to explain. She needs to quickly pack her things in order to have time to escape. Another letter arrived. It's urgently from the IG, the On Trading Guild. A man named Deka is coming to the villa. The letter arrived later than expected, because a red man appears on the doorstep. He shouts that mercenaries from the Langent Empire will soon be on the house's territory. They want to kidnap Asia to force her to create magic stones. They ask him to explain normally. The brunette doesn't understand how the Empire learned about Brel Ova's discovery. The details will be explained along the way. All that is known is that she needs to leave the village quickly to avoid being caught. In a few minutes, the heroine got ready and threw on a cloak. She asked to send servants to the nearest city. She will contact them later. Everything collapsed at once. Asia was being followed through the merchant guild. It seems they have introduced their people into the Marquis's house. Langent joined this case, so the situation took on a different scale. The lady is disappointed. She wanted to establish friendly relations with the Empire, but they are going to kidnap her. The horses stop. There is someone nearby. Someone is shooting, but not himself. With the help of magic, the mercenaries left later than Decca in, but obviously managed to set a trap. The lady realizes that she can create fog. The air in the forest is cold. With the help of the ring, the lady closes everything around her. The decoration that no axa gave her works exactly like that. I would like there to be no reason to use it, however. Nothing will remain. Red Maid turns to Tanasia. He asks her to stay with the guards. He himself is going to find an escape route. If they move together, they will be easily detected by the killers, so they cannot stick their necks out. Askin decides to stay with the lady. When the man leaves, she asks what they talked about. He told her where she could hide. The lady hands him a pistol to carry for self-defense. It is not activated yet, so she can use it. The target of the Langent mercenaries is the Duchess. The subordinate will escape separately so as not to be caught by the clan's people. Even if the heroine is caught, she promises that she will try to negotiate. The man puts forward a possible scenario. The Empire had a reason to choose kidnapping over negotiations. They could find out everything about the stones, and then deal brutally with the lady. She needs to escape with Decca while the servant holds off the mercenaries. There is worry in his voice. The hero cannot use all of his powers, and if Kalua's followers come, it will be even worse. He believes that it will be even better this way, since the followers are unlikely to leave alive those who have seen his abilities. Naively, the hero is ready to risk his own life. The blue mine aside one is against it only because he has abilities. You can't behave like that. His life is also important. Realizing that everything will soon be over, the ladies ask if they can get a reward. A moment passes. A kiss occurs. Asia does not resist and gives into the moment. In such a situation, she will not do anything. There is nothing to breathe. Moving away, the lady notices that the guy speaks as if they are saying goodbye forever. Lowering his gaze, he apologizes. It is time to do what he had planned, which no one warned the heroine about. When he compared the value of life, his own and his mistress's, the answer was already obvious. The girl's life was much more important. He asks for forgiveness for his decision, and then, doing this for the last time, he hugs the girl, pressing her closer to him. Decca appears again. The lady is pushed towards him. He grabs her, asking her to hold on tighter. He will leave Ascan, because they have already talked. This is the very topic that was raised when they talked before the start of the haze. Before the red mine was sent away for testing, the young man revealed that he had abilities that would allow him to protect Asia as soon as an escape route was found. Brelova needed to be taken away. As IG Theon races away, he looks back one last time. He sees an unquenchable fire gathering around him. It is unclear how an ordinary slave can possess such abilities. Blue Eyes also sees what is happening. She is scared. The control of the power is not yet perfect, which means it is not a fact that everything will work out. He can get hurt in the process. For the last time, the brunette looks at the lady. He would be lying if he said that he would not be bored at all. He begins the battle. Every blow misses, but he manages to defeat everyone. Askin thinks that he should examine the surroundings, because suddenly there are still survivors. He cannot allow the mistress to be pursued. She must save herself. While the young man was looking around, several people approached from behind. He didn't notice them right away, but he understood from their voices who was there. Mercenaries from the laboratory were spraying gas. One of them grinned. "Have you been well, number?" The body hadn't been sedated for a long time, so the reaction wasn't precise. Kicking his foot, the masked man kicks the gun away. Enra screams that many of his brothers mime died during Ascan's escape. He swore that if he caught him, he would kill him. They were going to drag him to the lab. The guy said that he would soon catch up with the lady, but it seemed that he would not succeed. By that time Brelov arrived in the capital. She begs her father for help, to send people to the Kalua Empire to save his subordinate. After that day, everything changed. The beauty remembers the moment when everything happened, and after that, she had a dream. She was spending time with Ascan, a beautiful field planted with flowers. Everything fell apart and noticed. again that look full of pain and despair, that look that the ladies saw when they ran away on horseback. Asia's eyes suddenly open. She doesn't understand where she is or what happened. Kane is sitting next to her, who calmly explains that the lady lost consciousness when they were heading back to the estate. The girl couldn't calm down while the horse was racing. She was hysterical. Attempts to calm her down were futile. Although the red man tried to explain that safety was important, he promised that as soon as he delivered her to the estate, he would immediately return there. Asia was too worried. The young man could not be saved, because he could not even be found. And found something else. He takes out a box in which there is a pistol. Confusion is reflected on his face. It becomes clear that Kiss broken. A handkerchief that the boy always had falls into his hands. Inside is wrapped the very flower that was in the young man's hair. Dried blood is visible on the fabric. The only good thing is that no body was found, which means the death has not been confirmed. If Askin had escaped, he would not have dropped the gun that the lady gave him. Maybe he would have encountered pursuers from Kahlua. After that, she goes to her father. She needs to ask for help, preferably as soon as possible. The merchant who was with the girl said that the young man was running from assassins. The woman explains that everything is not so at all. He was hiding from the Empire. The beauty promises to tell the details later. She needs to send people there as soon as possible. Blue Guy's eyes is going to go into the forest on her own, but the master forbids her. It will be too risky. Until she is allowed, she cannot go out. Her voice trembled. Brelova continued to explain. She needed to make sure the servant was okay, because he had promised to catch up with her, but again she heard a refusal. Orlin would check everything himself. He would do everything to fulfill his daughter's wishes. If Asia intervenes, the situation could progressively worsen, and then nothing can be fixed. Her task will simply be to have a good rest. She will be the first to hear the news. Time drags on. One day passes, then another, and then days pass. The longer the servant did not return, the more acutely the lady felt her helplessness, which began to irritate her. The trade guild learned the information through the servant, who harbored a grudge against the lady. The woman blames herself. If she hadn't been caught, the Lang End Empire wouldn't have known anything, and therefore, everything would have been fine with Askan. If they hadn't gone on the journey, they would have been protected at the estate. Brelova's past mistakes always got in the way, but what the girl did that night drove the guy into a trap from which he will not escape. He will be sent back to the lab. Number was indeed sent for experiments. They tried at first to eat away all the general information, but they did not succeed, because it was as if he did not remember anything except his own name. For scientists, it's good that the hero doesn't resist. The hero was tested several times, and he lost his memory, although, of course, no one knows what's really going on in his mind. The young man is returned to his cell. His cellmate sitting there asks why he is late. He has to introduce himself again. I have already said it for the 7th time. My name isn't outside. They called me Bill. Blue Eyes hopes that this time he won't be beaten. It's obvious that Askin has forgotten even that. He points at his face with displeasure. It was the TH who painted it so well, leaving many bruises. It was worth reproaching the man for always looking for some lady. As he became aggressive, the new acquaintance does not know who she is, but the words about going back begin to strain. Time after time they took him back. Previously, Askin remembered absolutely nothing, but now he has forgotten even the information about the one he was trying to find. He no longer remembers Asia Brelova. The young man managed to get to know Bill better. He learned from him about the situation. They are in a laboratory for creating human weapons on the territory of Kahlua. His number is. It turns out that they had once managed to escape from the Empire, but when the boy was returned, the hope of those remaining in the cells was dashed. For several days after his return, the man could not stop his rampage. Each time, the researchers caught him and gave him a sedative. The memories have become blurry, all because of the gas, but the body remembers everything. Regular meals, sleeping after turning off the lights, and experiments. Everything seems very real and natural. Deaths were occurring one after another within the laboratory walls. Bill noticed that rumors were circulating that the people were unhappy, that relations with other empires were getting tense, and that perhaps others had turned away because they had learned about the experiments. The lands are already poor, and since trade has stopped, people are starting to die of hunger. At this rate, the institution could be closed, and then all the subjects would be killed without mercy. After the truth comes out, Bill begins to understand why so many children have been dying lately, and for the same reason, much less food is coming into the building, and he wants those outside to suffer too. Askin asks people not to complain if children die. The head of the department tries to reduce the number of people. It is better not to eat the food supplied to the laboratory. Soon, there are almost no people left. Everyone was surprised that they did not die. but it became clear that the reason was the refusal to eat. The bodies are being burned gradually, the crematorium is too small, and the remaining people will have to be disposed of soon, since the order to close the facility has been received. Naskin understood that by telling the remaining children about the poison in their food, he had only slightly prolonged their lives. Everything would end. He thought that he too would die, until one day, a detachment of those who killed the scientists arrived. His Majesty orders that his tracks be covered up, all materials be taken away, and the place be set on fire. The man wanted to leave, but realized that there were test subjects left within the walls. Number had survived. The brunette asks not to worry, because he didn't come to harm. Clenching his teeth, Askin asks what the stranger's purpose is. He immediately noticed the sedative. The prince introduces himself. His name is Hiela Sion, and he has come to save the remaining people. He must take responsibility. He will give the subjects everything, even education. When the time comes, they will be able to take revenge. Keula wants to become the son of the empire. He wants to use the rest for his own purposes. If they don't like the offer, they can run away, but they will only spend their lives in poverty. If the boys agree to accept help, the force will be used with honor under the command of the master. They will be honored, accepting the best from the entire empire. Everyone in the cell is silent. They unanimously believe that they will do as Askin says, because he is considered their leader, the smartest one. The father tells Tanasia that although they have done everything possible, finding a servant is not an easy task. It is impossible. The lady thanks for the help. It means a lot. She has become much better, but her heart hurts. Even though her condition is noticeably better, Oral and cannot allow the young lady to go out until it becomes clear who these Langet pursuers are. If even the slightest clue appears, Brelova will be the first to know. The lady became the one who needed protection. She was unable to save those dear to her, nor to ensure peace for herself, completely destroying everything that she had. The world no longer seems like the one the heroine read about in the book. It seems real. If something went wrong, it is no longer possible to return everything back, no matter how hard the lady tried for this. The woman continues to remember Askan. She worries, realizing that something happened to him. To distract herself a little, she spends time with the teacher. The development of Kame or effective model began. The lady's face looks even more tired than last time. Varen assures that what happened is not considered her fault. She pretends to know, but this is absolutely not true, because in the end, she would not have exhausted herself so much if she understood. Tan Asia wants to become stronger in order to protect everyone she cares about, and she asks him to promise that if a dangerous situation arises, the teacher will choose his own path to salvation without trying to protect her. The old man grins. The only thing he is willing to risk his life for is magical engineering. It is the only thing he has left. There is nothing else. It was a long time ago, but once upon a time, the young man was the heir of the Kaldor family, which was famous for its connection with the magical power of the earth, but not having inherited the gift, the boy fell into disfavor. He left and devoted his life to the study of science. Living like this, Varen Ian was left only with the business connected with magic. If someone tried to force him to give it up, he would resist at the cost of his life, because there is no point in continuing the path if there is no beloved business. Herson is capable of giving his life for what is important to him. The heroine does not understand whether she was someone like that for Askan. She will search for him until the end, but hope is beginning to be lost. Keep remembering the same words about how the current version of Tanasia and the past are two different things. He said that the way the lady behaves is nice to see. She is no longer arrogant and evil. The young man decided to go with the third prince. It was unclear whether he should be trusted, but the fact that he ordered the laboratory to be burned down certainly pleased the subjects. It was a kind of relief, a step towards freedom. The impregnable institution collapsed so easily, and this, in addition to joy, leaves the hero feeling empty. He can only hope that the future ruler will fulfill his promise. The brunette understood that if they refused, they would be killed on the spot. The knights were armed with a sedative. The children could not control their abilities, and Askin himself was at his limit. The most important thing is that he managed to get out of hell. Bill thanks his brother for giving him a new chance. His gaze turns to the beautiful starry sky. Something inside seems to turn over. In the front carriage, they are distributing food, but for now, you can look at the sky. The guy still feels like he has forgotten something very important. Brelova looks at the stars, not suspecting that she is doing this at the same moment as Askan. She feels lost. She wants to be next to him again and hug him. After some time, the two finally meet. But unfortunately, the young man does not remember anything at all. He does not even understand how an Asian knows his name.